Hello, everybody. 1 minute, 1 minute. Let me get ready and let me get situated. Okay. So I'm going to start off this stream with some gratitude, things that I'm thankful for. I am DMing this person that wants to draw me. And I always get super happy when people want to draw me. Hopefully it comes through. But I'm pretty grateful that people are noticing me online. That's always nice. I'm very grateful for the audience that I have and the people who tune in and the small community that I'm building that, who knows, eventually will be one big community. Either way, I'm enjoying the journey and I'm enjoying where I'm getting started. And, I'm just riding the wave and I'm just doing my thing. I'd like to apologize for showing up super late on a Sunday. I don't know who really shows up like that on a Sunday. When I did that Sabrina Carpenter and Sydney Sweeney commentary, a lot of people were here for that. They were. But and I think it's because both of those celebrities are trending right now. Today, I don't know what it's going to be like. So it might very much so give me talking into the ether, and that's okay. We had a pretty good stream yesterday. I talked about kind of things that are going on in the world today, mostly like America going to war with Iran and just politics in general, why I avoid them. And then also I talked about my new hyperfixation on Paramore, like me actually going into their discography and listening to their music, and how I feel slighted because like late stage Paramore, late season Paramore, I feel like a lot of the friends I was around at the time weren't into them and I was the only one that was. And I think I realized that millennials are more so like Green Day, My Chemical Romance, pop punk fans, and Gen Z is more so Paramore and Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco fans. I think there's like an overlap, like Zillennials, like people around my age, the overlap would be Zillennials are more so into both Panic at the Disco, early stage Paramore, and early season Paramore, and My Chemical Romance. I met with the overlap of like late season Paramore, Fall Out Boy, and who else was that? Sorry, I lost my train of thought. But like late season Paramore, Fall Out Boy, and I think maybe Panic at the Disco. I don't know. But either way, I had a conversation about that yesterday. I played some Marvel Rivals. I played some Infinity Nikki, and that was fun. And I just kind of talked about stuff, talked about life, talked about my job. I think for now, I want to get into some commentary. I want to do a content switch where I'm talking about commentary, but I'm doing so in a way where I'm kind of reacting to the videos that I'm looking at. I see a lot of people do that on here, and I think that would kind of give me a schedule of things to talk about and things that I have input on. I already do that right now alone by myself. Like I'll go on TikTok, I'll listen to people talk, and I'll be like, I agree with that, or I'll be like, I don't agree with that, and then I'll go on a full-blown rant. So might as well do it while I am I don't know, streaming, the first topic I really want to talk about is generational parenting. And I kind of want to express my concerns over parenting and motherhood. Sorry, I booted up Infinity Nikki. All right, here we go. Okay, sure. Hold on 1 second, guys. I'm trying to like mute the music. Okay, so I wanted to talk about like parenting and like my opinions on it. And I feel like the older I get, the more and more I get discouraged from actually wanting to be a parent. Like, I just don't really want to be a parent. And I think one of the reasons why, and I want to be child free. And I don't know. It's not even how I feel like women personally have been tricked into this idea and concept that parenting is the most selfless, greatest sacrifice you can do as a woman. Because while it is a great sacrifice that women do, and to an extent it can be seen as selfless, it is also very hard, very difficult, very thankless. And when it's all said and done, if you are a person who is like, I work so hard at something, I put all my effort into something, and this is the reward, like, where's my reward? Am I gonna get a reward from this? If you're like that type of person when you go into parenting, almost always you're probably gonna get the short end of the stick, because you have made the decision as soon as like the sperm meets the egg and y'all decide that the like abortion is not a conversation, right? And you decide to have that kid, like, you are making the decision that however your kid turns out, no matter how hard you nurture, pour into, work on your child, is a reflection on your parenting, and is a reflection on their circumstances, and is a reflection on you as an individual, and what you did do and what you didn't do as a parent. And sometimes it feels like the best that you did was not good enough. And I think with parenting, I think that's the hardest pill to swallow as someone who's child free and has no kids, that your best isn't always going to be good enough at parenting. Like, there's always going to be something that you could have done. There's always going to be things that you didn't do. And I think at this point in society, I feel like sometimes it's not really in control. Like, sometimes, like, some of these things, like, you know, having parenting be accessible, finding community and third spaces for children, or just having a support system to lean on, a support system to lean on, is getting harder and harder every like decade or so as we evolve as a human species, as we go through society, as things become more isolated, as the world gets more and more like privatized. It gets really, really difficult to raise children. Like, I think about when I was a kid. I was born in 94. My birthday's coming up. But I was born in 94, and I just remember the first 5 to 6 years of my existence just felt so different. Like before, pre 9/11, I just remember things were looking so hopeful. Things were very extra. We had crazy, wacky aesthetics of like the 90s, like wacky pomo. Do y'all know about wacky pomo? Let's see if I can show you guys. Wacky pomo. Like this weird nightmare fuel head ass aesthetic right here, where it's just like slime and like KB Toys, basically. Just think of like a KB Toys in like 97, right? That's wacky pomo, right? And that was like the style. It's just like very quirky and different. And we had all of these crazy ass aesthetics in the 90s. Things were cool. The 90s were cool, okay? Freaknik was a thing. Even though I wasn't old enough to go to Freaknik, I always talk about Freaknik like it's some urban legend. I know my aunt went, but it was just all these cool things that were happening in the 90s that just made it so spunky and different. And then as I got older and as we evolved, and as, you know, elements. See, what the hell is this? This is like low-key nightmare fuel. I'm so sorry. The image is very pixelated, but like these things at the top, this is some nightmare fuel. But as things became like progressed technologically, it feels like we just strayed away from all like the color and vibrancy of like the 90s and the 80s, and we just moved into like sterile, aesthetics and all that. And I think with parenting and whatnot, like I said, like when I was like the first 6 years of my life were great. And then 9/11 happened. And then, whether I was ready to receive the news or not, like us getting access as Americans to like tragedies that have occurred in our country, and then us going to a war that was on terror, even though the people that hit the planes weren't really which was in Afghanistan, even though the people that hit the planes I heard weren't really in Afghanistan. I don't know. They're from Saudi Arabia. I don't know. But it's just getting like more and more difficult. Like from then on, and I want to say like, especially during like the 2008 recession as well, from then on, things got really hard. I think first 6 years of my life were great. Then the 2000s hit, and there was an element of like mysticism and like quirkiness of the 2000s that I'll never take away. Like being a Disney Channel kid around that time was prime, peak, where you had Disney Channel queens like Lizzie or Hilary Duff from Lizzie McGuire. You had like Lizzie McGuire here, and then you also had like Raven from That's So Raven, and just like the innocence of just like watching your favorite cartoon show. I remember Cartoon Network. Every Friday I would tune in for what was it? Cartoon Fridays on Cartoon Network. Oh, we're seeing the back end. No, Cartoon Fridays, Cartoon Fridays on Cartoon Network. And, just watching a bunch of different shows line up to like encapsulate all of Cartoon Network's catalog. First of all, like sidebar, what the hell is even going on with Cartoon Network, right? Like, I don't know what happened. Ever since they transitioned to streaming, it feels like a significant chunk of Cartoon Network is gutted, and I hear some shows are going into the vault. Like, I don't know. But anyway, things were just like a lot more innocent back then. Things were also like like a little bit, like a lot more, not a little bit, a lot more affordable too. And it was like easier to be a parent. It was easier than it is now to start a family. Like there were people, depending on where you lived, there were people who could buy a home and pay their mortgage all on a job making like 40, 50K a year. Like that was feasible back then. And then it's just like now you can't even do that. Like you can't even pay your rent in an apartment off of a 30K a year salary. You have to have a roommate. And if you want some semblance of comfort, at minimum, you have to be making like 70 to 75K a year if you want to live some semblance of comfort. And that's like even pushing it, because the rent prices for an apartment, not a home, but an apartment, are off the chain. And then you add children into the mix. You add wanting to have kids and raising kids. And here's the thing. Something I notice about boomers who raise children is that, and boomer parenting, is that they come from like a no nonsense, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, this is just what we do, we don't question it type of energy. And I think it's because of their parents coming back from World War II, which like, you're coming back from war, the men are coming back from war in mass. Like how could they not be traumatized to the point where they're just numb and like, all right, let's just pump out babies? Like how could that not happen, right? But like, I think a lot of boomers based off of how their parents were raised, which I think a trauma response from their parents coming back from the war, or their dads or fathers coming back from the war, and the women holding down the fort is like, just make babies. Things were much more comfortable back then to be able to afford to have 4 to 5 kids at a time, 5+ kids at a time. I do think that boomers kind of are lost or like disconnected by like their parenting style not really being healthy, I guess, or ideal. And that like we are a lot more self-aware, like millennials and Gen Z are a way more self-aware about like the decisions we make and what we want to do, and like the concept of parenting. Like it no longer works with us, which I'm so glad it doesn't, but it doesn't work with us, but like it no longer works that you can tell your child, be grateful. I did all these things for you. I helped you. I supported you. I fed you. I did the best I could. So you should just be grateful with it, right? Like that no longer works anymore. And to an extent, there are parents that really do the best that they can. And there are kids that can be little shits and do not appreciate anything that their parents do. However, like, at the end of the day, and I think this is a hard pill for boomers to swallow, like a really hard pill, because they come from a generation of people who just had babies because that's what they did, right? I think it's a hard pill to swallow that a lot of boomers who decide to have children are entirely responsible for how those children come out in the world. And the reason being is because these children did not ask to be here. Like the kid that you created, that you laid down with whoever partner you wanted to, that you decided to not, swallow, my aunt calls it swallow the cow. Swallow the cow for, right? You decided not to swallow the cow. You decided to take that milk up into your orifice, right? And you decided to birth this child, right? You as a parent are entirely responsible for the outcome of how your kid turns out. And then you also have to understand that your kid is completely and unabashedly like valid, and them feeling like you did not do a good enough job as a parent. Like they are totally valid in feeling that way, because they did not ask to be here. They were not vibing in the womb like, come on, it's time for me to come out, it's time for me to get my mom pregnant, like, no, it took 2 to tango. 2 folks laid down, whether it was planned or unplanned. Y'all up and decided to have those children, okay? And so if those kids feel like you did not do a good enough job as a parent, like that is like on you, because the kid did not ask to be in this world. And I think with a lot of new age parents that are, just kind of having kids, albeit like maybe they are responsible about it, maybe they're irresponsible about it, but like not really thinking through the concept of having children, it is no longer going to work with later generations. You saying, oh, well, I gave you life. I did this. I did that. I cooked. I cleaned. I put you in school. You should be grateful. That's the bare minimum, though. Like that is really the bare minimum. Like, and I think that parents that know deep down inside that they probably did not want to have these kids, that were probably not well equipped to have children. I think that women who have high-key been tricked, I do think motherhood is a trick. It's a very nefarious trick that we put on women, and that we use as a tool to shame women into, settling down when they really don't need to, right? I think that a lot of parents now can't cope with the fact that they could do everything right, and in their child's eyes they'd still be a fuck up. And even if their child says that they're a fuck up, they're not entirely wrong, because they did not ask to be here. and that the bare minimum is you cooking, cleaning, feeding, taking your kid to school. Like, another thing I need people to understand about parenting is that that's like the bare bottom, below the barrel minimum of what you need to do as a parent. Like, it is incredibly unusual. I need people to understand, because I see a lot of people romanticizing the idea of having like multiple kids with multiple partners out of wedlock, and then like trying to preach this idea of like, you know, gender roles and nuclear household structures, but you can't even honor it in your own home. I see that a lot, especially with people who have a lot of money and resources, especially with the menses that have a lot of money and resources. I see that a lot, okay? I see they use that as an argument a ton of times for them trying to lure women into their stable, more or less, of like, you know, making them wives or making them baby mamas. The argument being like, you know, you have to be a subservient, submissive woman, and these other baby mamas weren't, and you know, we gotta, you know, grind it out, and we gotta be strong, and you gotta hold down the fort. And it's like, bro, you don't even know how to keep it in your pants long enough to like be a respectable father figure to your child, right? And so I say all of that to say that it is incredibly unusual. Like, I'm gonna look, okay, hold on, I'm gonna change the scene. I'm gonna look you in my eyes when I say this. I need you to look me in my eyes when I say this, okay? It is incredibly unusual, absolutely unusual, that there is like a whole, like, men for years, decades, maybe even hundreds of years, have just high-key abandoned their kids. Like, they just don't take care of their kids. It's especially unusual now how they try to aggressively like normalize it and be like, oh, it's okay, it's fine, it's not that serious. But like, real talk, it is very serious. Like the amount of children who have daddy issues, the amount of children who do not have father figures in their lives, to show them like at least some semblance of what masculinity can look like, because it doesn't have to look like your favorite podcaster, right? Like, that is very unusual. And like, what the gag is that when you see men that just like exist as like parents, like fathers who exist as parents, but they're not actively like helping in the household, you think that's like the best, like at least he's in the household. Like, no, you have to do more as a parent. You can't leave it all to the mother. And so I say all of that to say that, there is a video I want to do commentary on, where this guy is talking about how our parents didn't love us, and explaining why our parents were like, you know, POSs for having us, and why they didn't necessarily love or appreciate us as people. I think this is a very interesting video that I kind of want to critique and add in some commentary to, because I don't think he's entirely wrong, but I do think it's like a generational trauma response to how difficult parenting is now. Going back to the boomers real quick, when they were kids, it was incredibly easy, at least for men, it was incredibly easy for men to start families and to take all their kids to college and to support all their children and to ensure that their children had some semblance of a stable life. Now I say men because with the men who were able to, you know, work their little 20, 15K a year job and be able to pay for all their kids to go to school and all that, you know, the women had to sacrifice a lot of themselves in order to do that. They did not have the freedoms that we have now. That's why I'll always be against this like fake women empowerment, anti-feminist type of rhetoric that come out of women's mouths right now, because it is like, people don't, like, women don't understand how much of a privilege it is for you to even open your mouth and try to act like you want to be anti-feminist. Like that is a privilege for you to even have a platform that promotes anti-feminist rhetoric. You could not do that in the 50s or 60s. That was impossible, right? And so, like I said, back then, the boomer parents, the boomer children, had a very stable lifestyle. Things were very comfortable for them as children. They almost always were guaranteed to go to college. It was very easy for them to get a job right after college. They literally could just waltz into a job with a resume and be like, hire me, bitch. And the employer would be like, yeah. It wasn't all of this mental gymnastics that it is now. It wasn't all of this apply to 500 jobs and hold your breath, and you have to play mental manipulative gymnastics during the interview process that lasts 3 to 4 3 to 4 rounds. Like, you know, like a lot of this stuff that boomers are like so disconnected to. And something that I've noticed is that the millennials who were raised by boomer parents are kind of reacting to the way that these parents had raised them, and they're kind of, you know, a little resentful. And I think it has to do a lot with the entitlement of boomers. I think it also has to do a lot with a lot of them not really understanding the way the world works currently now, and how difficult millennials will have in order to survive as human beings on in this country, or just in general, right? And just that because they were taught by their parents during the silent generation that the best thing they could do is have kids and start a family and populate the earth, they just think that having kids and completing the most bare minimum of parenthood automatically earned you a gold star of being a good parent. And that just isn't true, you know? I'm not gonna get too personal about my own life, but I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I don't really talk to my parents that much. I don't talk to anybody in my family that much. I am an only child, and it gets very lonely, but I find ways to entertain myself. Like right now, I'm having a really great time. I think me being able to just comfortably talk to myself comes from me just being an only child. And just trying to find ways to entertain myself. And like, don't get me wrong, I want to preface this by saying that, like, because I was an only child, I was spoiled. Okay? Like my parents spoiled the hell out of me, and they gave me a really, like, a decent enough childhood. However, there were still some issues, right? Like, I had a lot. I really could not want for anything, really. But then there was also a lot of dysfunction. There were a lot of arguments. There was a lot of fighting, a lot of, like, I'm gonna keep it there. I don't want to get into details, but like there was just a lot of fighting. It would get very bad as like the recession happened, and as we ended up having to move from place to place and figure out how to pay bills, or them figuring out how to run the business and all that. To be fair, I was a good enough kid to their knowledge. To their knowledge, I was a good enough kid. But online, since the internet was my third space since I was like 12, okay, and like looking back, I would absolutely not allow for the internet to be a third space for a 12-year-old in like 2025. But in 2007, honey, 2005, the internet was very much so my third space. Like I remember you know, my dad setting up the computer and me being able to play on websites like brats.com and girlsense.com and like the Disney Channel games. That's why I have like such a fondness for these games right now. Like, because I just remember it so clearly as a kid and like vividly of like my life. Oh my God, I'm bleeding. Oh my God. Okay, hold on. Pause. Let me end by saying this. I remember it so clearly and vividly in my life, like a significant part of me interacting with technology for the first time is having access to the internet and playing like internet games like Barbie and Barbie.com, MySteam.com, Girlsense.com, Addicting Games, Miniclip.com, like those type of games. Like that was a prominent like childhood experience for me. However, there were some caveats. And some of the, okay. I just said I was bleeding. Hold on one second. Let me like take care of that real quick. So I'm gonna put y'all on a brief pause while I take care of it. Okay. Okay, I'm back. Back. Okay, so the caveat is that I was also raised very strict. And I think this is a common epidemic with a lot of young Black girls because there was a constant fight to keep young Black girls. I believe from like the Gen X generation and like the millennial generation, I think what shows like Teen Mom and like the epidemic of like teenage pregnancy, I think there was like even more of a pressure to ensure that young Black girls did not get pregnant at a young age. And focused more so on like being in the books and educating themselves and going to college and being successful. Hence the saying that happens in Black spaces is that, you know, Black daughters are raised and Black sons are loved. And I do resonate with that statement, that it did feel in some cases, because I was a woman, because I was a young girl, that I was raised and I was sheltered, but I wasn't loved or nurtured. And so the reason why I don't really talk to my parents like that right now, or I don't really talk to much of my mom's side of the family right now, I talk to my cousin on my dad's side of the family, but that's because like we have a lot in common. We share a lot of commonalities. Like we talk a lot about like social media and stuff, and not just social media, but like pop culture. We have a lot of similarities, you know what I mean? But like I was this only child, and one second, sorry. I was this only child, and I was not just an only child, but I was like the only kid amongst like generations of adults. Like I think the youngest cousin from my direct family, not like a cousin that was like my mom's best friend, she was like 22 when I was like 2 years old. Like there was like a significant generation gap, if you will. And so what are you going to have in common with a 2-year-old? Nothing. Like you're not going to have much in common. Like what does a 13-year-old have in common with a 1-year-old? You know what I mean? Oh no, my lighting. Okay, fixed it. All right, cool. And so I was kind of alone. I had one cousin that was like my mom's best friend. But we weren't that close. Like they were trying so hard to get us close. They were trying so hard, but we weren't gonna be that close. It just wasn't gonna happen. And I think it's because we lived like two very different lives. I think another thing I want to add is that my mom's side of the family was the one that raised me the most. I was kind of separated by my dad's side of the family a ton. And there was an adamant push to separate me from my dad's side of the family, because I don't think my mom liked them. And I think the older that I get, I feel like if I was raised by my dad's side of the family, it would have still been some friction because I was spoiled, and I'm like super sensitive too. Okay, like that's another thing about me. I think that's because, you know, being like a spoiled only child, you get like really sensitive about some stuff, but I've been working through it, right? But I think it would have been good character development if I was around them, perhaps. You know, I know that they were kind of like, I don't really know a lot of them to even say, because my mom was adamant on keeping me away from them. And then even like the cousins that like my mom's relatives had, I remember her mother had like 5 kids, and then she had like 2 sisters and 2 brothers. Yeah, she had 2 sisters and 2 brothers. Wasn't that close to them, really. up until recently, I guess. Like, she's close now, but one of the sisters, which was my aunt, had 2 children. And I remember the 2 children came to visit me. They were like twins, right? And my mom was like, yeah, you can't hang around them. You can't hang around those kids. So I had like no community. It was just me, my early 90s PC computer that my father set up, playing Bratz.com, and all the Bratz dolls and Barbies that they could buy me to entertain, to entertain myself. And so I feel like I was raised, but I also wasn't nurtured. And I feel like I didn't have to want for anything material wise. Like, I didn't have to want for any like actual material things like back then, because dolls were relatively cheap to an extent. Like, I was able to get like a doll every weekend. I know, boo, spoiled, no. But like, when it came to actually like nurturing me and like my mental health and my issues, and like, I was a really anxious kid. I'm still like a really anxious person, and I dealt with like a lot of mental health issues in regards to my appearance, in regards to growing up in predominantly white spaces and not really feeling represented, in regards to like sometimes how the kids would interact with me and how my mother expected me to interact with them and just interact in the world as like a Black girl. And you know, what she expected from me as a Black girl, and her like classist viewpoints, which we'll get into in another video, right? I do feel like there was a lack of nurturing, and there was a lot of helicopter parenting. So the helicopter parenting was, you can't go outside, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't stay home by yourself. Which, to be fair, if you're like 8 or 9, you really shouldn't be home by yourself to begin with. But you can't stay home by yourself. You can't watch these videos, they're inappropriate. You can't listen to this music, that's inappropriate. You can't do this. Like, you can't do all of that stuff, okay? You can't do all of the things that I felt were like core like development for like a kid. You know, like, I couldn't like go outside and play with the neighborhood kids. I couldn't really sleep over kids' houses. It was always, they had to sleep over mine, but I couldn't sleep over theirs, which was so hypocritical, but whatever. That's my mom. I was like dragged outside every weekend to go and run groceries because my mom did not want me to stay home alone, right? But then the thing about it is that I was monitored as a kid. I wasn't nurtured, you know? And the monitored came from saying, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that, no. But the nurturing did not come into play when I was like, my mental health is bad, I don't feel good. I remember one time when I was 11, I told my mom, I think I'm depressed. And my mom said, you're not depressed, because if you were depressed, you would stay in bed all day. And I'm like what? Like, as an 11-year-old girl, I cannot stay in bed all day. You would wake me up to go to school. Now, as a 26-year-old woman who was dealing with all the shit that was happening during COVID, guess what I was doing? I was staying in bed all day. I was rotting in bed. And then as I like got older, at like 16 or 17, I would just nap. And my parents would be like, oh, that's just, you know, young exes, that's just what she does. She just naps. You know, teenagers like to sleep a lot. That wasn't normal. Like, the way I would just sleep my whole day away. I still sleep my whole day away. It's really bad. I'm working on it. But that shit isn't normal. Like, I need y'all to understand that shit is not normal. All right? That's not normal. But, you know, it stemmed from like me being a young kid and being like, hey, I'm depressed. Like I don't feel like I'm accepted at school. I don't feel like I'm accepted at home. Like, I don't feel like you guys are listening to me at home. You guys argue all the damn time. Like, you guys are arguing, and the arguments are escalating and getting very violent, okay? I am anxious all the time. I'm anxious all the time. I'm worried all the time. I'm being yelled at by all of these adults who can't understand that I am a child that they decided to put on this planet. Mind you, I didn't ask to be here. They decided to put me on this planet. So I'm going to see the world a little bit differently than they do. And I feel like I can't relate or come through to these fully grown adults that you keep lugging me around and keep me around constantly. Like I said, there wasn't a lot of, how do you say, nurturing of like, what are your interests? What are your hobbies? And like they tried, and, you know, I got into like piano for a bit. I wasn't good at that. I wasn't athletic at all, you know, wasn't too good at that. And so I found solace in just like doing art and keeping to myself. And like my family, that my parents would say, and my extended family would say, well, oh, that's what Isis does. She just keeps to herself and minds her business. The reason why I keep to myself and mind my business is because when I did try to reach out, when I did try to connect, when I did try to speak about my experiences, or like bond, I didn't like feel any like reciprocation. Like I just felt isolated and alone, and so I just kept to myself because it was a defense mechanism. If you're being raised as a kid constantly to stay out of grown folks' business, to you know, stay in a child's place, to know your place, to not have an opinion, any opinion or speaking up for yourself is seen as disrespect, which is very, very harmful. It's a harmful thing for you to do to your child, is to condition them to not want to speak their mind, which is something my mother did, definitely, because she thought that any like sassy kid is like disrespectful and deserves their ass beat, right? You develop like despondent children. Hopefully I'm using that word right. Do I want to say despondent? Yeah, despondent children. You develop despondent children. You develop children who don't want to interact, who just want to stay, keep their head down, who don't have an opinion because they've been grilled into their parents' heads that they can't have an opinion. The whole concept of like, you know, I'm your parent, I'm not your friend, which to an extent, like, yeah, like your parent isn't, they aren't your friend, right? Like they're your parent. But like, I think that there is a way for you to tell your child that I have to raise you, but I still want you to know that you can come to me for anything, and I will try to see you on your level, on where you're at in what you're coming to me with. And that's not what I got from my mother. Like I said, I would express like mental health concerns at a young age, and my mom would be like, you know, just listen to Zig Ziglar, or just listen to Tony Robbins and learn how to be more positive, and self-help. Self-help is a load of shit. It's a load of crap. It's a load of bullshit. And it's even worse now because anyone's picking up 7 ways to influence people and thinking that they are a self-help guru. Okay. It's a load of shit. And like, that is not getting to the level of an 11-year-old girl who does not feel included in her private Catholic school because she's like one of 2 Black girls that goes there and is like super unathletic and super weird and has very like unusual hyper fixated interests, right? Like that just does not help. Okay, like it doesn't. That's being told that she's not smart enough in class, like you know, I was always in the remedial classes. I wasn't the smartest. Okay, I really wasn't. I wasn't the most athletic. I was just kind of there, and I was just kind of doing my best. And maybe my best wasn't good enough. And I do appreciate my mom for pushing me when she could, but it was just like, you know, all of these things that were going on as a young child and all the stuff I was going on at home with my family life, it really affected me. And I feel like I'm in a position now where I don't really talk to my parents that much because we haven't really like gotten closure from that, because I don't even think they know like this has like been it's like how much it's actually affected me as a person, and to an extent how I feel resentful because they're still hung up on the fact of all the things that they've done for me, and they've done a lot, and I'm more than grateful for all the things that they've done for me, for putting me through education, for helping me out with college. Like, I'm very grateful for all of those things, but at the end of the day, that doesn't absolve them from like the things that they could have done better. You know what I mean? And what's sad is that I got like the better end of being raised. Like I got like an ideal childhood, right? Like, textbook definition, I couldn't want for anything, right? However, there were some issues that I did call out, right? But what's sad is that there are other children who've probably had significantly worse. There are children who had way better, right? Who come from wealthy families, who can get whatever they want, who have trust funds and all of that. I don't have that, right? But then there are children who have parents that have done horrendous jobs, and are sitting up here saying, well, I gave you life and I put you through school and I did this and the other for you. And it's like, congrats, buddy. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. That's what you're supposed to do, right? And so I say all of that to say that I want to talk about this video by The Truth Tiger, and his viewpoint on why your parents don't like you. I want to discuss like his take and also talk about my theories, and hopefully we can have a good conversation about it. So let's get started. I'm going to change the scene up, and then I'm going to play the video. And whoever is joining in on this live, let me know if you guys can hear the video.
This video is going to be called "Your Parents Didn't Love You," and I'm not doing this to be nihilistic. I'm not doing this to be all black-pilled or whatever. It's just, this is a very liberating truth. This is a freeing truth. This is something that I thought.
So I just want to pause this video real quickly because he said something about like him not trying to be nihilistic or black-pilled. I just want to say, I think in 2026, I know it's too early, like we're halfway through 2025 and it already feels like the year is over. It already feels like we're going through it. But like for 2026, can we throw away the pill language? Can we like throw that shit away? I don't know how it started, how it developed, how it birthed, but like all this black pill, red pill, blue pill, green pill shit, like it's annoying. Like we gotta, like, not everything needs to have a community or a subgroup, all right?
Of today, and it set me free in a very, very big way, because we were lied to and told our parents love us no matter what, and they love us so much, and it's so nice, and it's so cool, and you know, I was, I guess, propagandized by my own parents like that, where they're always saying, we're such a great family, we love you so much, we love each other so much. And the thing is, people who actually have love for you, they don't have to say it over and over again.
So that's an interesting take. Yeah, I agree. However, I do think it's kind of expected socially for a parent to pour life into their child and say that they love you. Like some children like to hear that they are being loved. You know what I mean? So that's an interesting
maybe
take.
Your parents never even said it. I don't know. You know, I'm just saying what happened to me. But actual love will be felt. It will be shown through actions. It will be shown through good actions. It will be shown through care. It will be shown through kindness. But man, with our parents, they didn't show us any of that. They did not demonstrate that. They did not act upon that. Hitting your goals has nothing to do with it.
Advertisement. Oh my god, I forgot that I get a lot of advertisements. So I'm just gonna let this play. I'm gonna let the ad play and I'm gonna speak. So everything that he's saying is very interesting. I do think that parents do, I think that boomer parents and parents in general are taught that love is like cooking, cleaning, and taking care of your child, like socially in the way that you're expected to, right? But I also feel like there are going to be times where you have to extend a little bit further from that, and you have to do more. Otherwise, your child isn't going to feel loved. And if it's an issue of my parents keep telling me that they love me, but they're also doing like harmful and abusive things while still trying to tell me we're this big happy family and they love me, or also like for in my case, like seeing my parents fight all the time and then them try to say, oh, we're a big happy family, let's have family dinners together, let's do things as a family and talk, and I see them interact with each other and you can just tell that they hate each other's guts. Like they absolutely do not like each other or fuck with each other like that. It's very hard for a child to believe that they are in a happy family relationship or that like the family is loved if there is dysfunction there. So I do see where he's coming from. Okay, the ad has ended, so I'm going to change the scene and get back into the video.
Made a bunch of bad, goofy decisions, put us in bad positions, did not protect us, did not set us up for life properly, did not teach us the things they needed to teach us. Man, they didn't do any of the stuff they needed to do. And it's like, well, they still loved you, and it's no, love will generate positive results. Love will generate goodness. Love will generate good things. Hatred and apathy will generate bad. It will generate evil. I don't want to say our parents hated us, but in a sense they did. And for some people, their parents really did hate them. I've heard bad stories from people. My story's not good either, and there are actions that come out of apathy and hatred. And the truth is our parents kind of low-key did hate us a bit,
So this is also very interesting. All the things he's saying, I do agree with to an extent. My parents, I would say, did not prepare me for adulthood. And the gag is that my mom would fight and scratch every single time to let me know that she would prepare me for adulting. Like she'd say, you have to save and you have to listen to Dave Ramsey and you have to do this. And, we're going to sit down and go over finances and go over how to, save money and go over how to be financially successful. Like we're going to do all of those things, and they never happened. And at most what my mom would do is throw books in my face, or I would find some of her financial books and I would read them. But my mother would never actually sit me down. There were maybe one or two times when she would sit me down with maybe my birthday money of $60, which I don't know, in 2007, maybe that is a lot of money. I don't know. But she'd sit me down with my $60 and give me a crash course in okay, so we put half of it in savings and then we put half of it in checking. And then I'd get all this anxiety about well, I only have $30. What can I buy with $30? I can't even buy my favorite limited 2 top, so what are we doing here? But I feel for me personally, it was always my mom trying to tell me about these financial topics that I need to learn about, but her never actually showing me how that works in action. That never happened. Her never actually showing me how she actually pays a bill, or her showing me how she actually pays taxes. She never ever showed that to me, or how they save their money. That never happened. Another thing I'd like to keep in mind is that he's right. A lot of parents did not educate their children on that. They just educated their kids on what they know. But also, a tough pill to swallow is that a lot of people are broke. A lot of boomers, Gen Xers were probably broke. A lot of them were not wealthy, okay? And I think people are starting to realize now, especially millennials and boomers and millennials and Gen Z, since we've gotten the short end of the stick since a lot of us have been birthed, right? Is that in order to learn how to handle money, you need to have a foundation where you're making enough money. Okay, like in order to learn how to save, how to retire, how to take care of finances, credit score, all of that, you need to have a like money to do so. And I think a lot of parents that were raising their kids, especially after the 2008 financial crisis, especially after like America has told us time and time again that the wealth gap will inevitably, like the middle class is gonna like die out, right? I think that there are a lot of parents that wanted to teach their kids how to be efficient adults, but couldn't because they just didn't have the resources themselves when it comes to money, at least. But like driving, I'm not gonna lie, I agree with him all the way with that. Like my mother never really taught me how to drive. I don't know why. And now I'm like 30 and have no car and very hesitant to drive. About to be 31 this in like a couple of weeks, and I'm super hesitant to drive. Lost her job, was planning on buying a car, can't buy a car anymore because why? I don't have a job in a couple weeks. So like I get where he's coming from in that regard. One of the reasons why I feel like my mom didn't want to like teach me some of like these adult life lessons. This was actually like a big conversation for me when I was about to go to college because my parents and my family were so afraid that I would be turned out during college and I'd end up 20 and pregnant and have to drop out, right? Which, depending on which school I went to, would have been so easy. Like, I need y'all to understand, it would have been so easy for me to be a single baby mama. So easy because I got no sex talk. I think I got like the your body is changing talk, but like the sex talk I got of like how sex works was with like my middle school best friend and her explaining it because they had like a thorough, I went to private Catholic school for like 18 years of my life. All right. So they are not going to teach you like the eggplant goes into the peach hole and yeah, they're not going to teach you that, right? They're just not going to, no. But like public school, they're going to teach you that shit. They're going to give you condoms and be like, be careful and all that. You know what I mean? They have to teach you those things. They have to. It's mandatory. So I was like left in the dark a lot about sex. And like, unfortunately, this goes back to me being nurtured and not, or this goes back to me being helicoptered and monitored and not nurtured, because like a lot of how I learned how the body works and like how sex works and like the perception of sex, right, was on the internet. And like my parents weren't checking that shit at all, bruh. And I was getting into some stuff. Anyway, let's have him continue.
I really think they saw us as a responsibility and as a job and as work they did not want to do, a responsibility they didn't want to have to deal with. They didn't want to have to like make sacrifices and put themselves aside. Rather, they wanted us, the kids, to make sacrifices for them, the parents. They did not want to have to do their parental duty of protecting us, leading us, guiding us, loving us. They did not want to do those parental duties. They did not have it within them. They were not responsible people. They were not responsible people who could stand up on their own 2 feet. They were not loving people with good, kind, loving hearts. If someone does not have a loving heart, they're not going to actually show real love. They don't have the capacity or the capability to show real love if they don't have a good, loving heart. Bottom line. And the thing is, I know for me, like with my parents, like a lot of bad decisions and a lot of decisions that, set me back. And I think a lot of y'all can relate to that, like just parents' decision making setting you back and just them not being together in their life and stuff like that, and I don't want to be too harsh and say they have to have everything together and have it all perfect, but if you're gonna have kids, you should try to get your stuff together and like get stuff decent. And they failed to do that. I think of it like this: if let's say you're a surgeon and you show up for your surgery late, you're hungover, you're texting with one hand, you got the scalpel in the other, you know, and you go, and then, you know, the patient ends up passing away from that, and it's like, well, I tried, I had good intentions, I tried my best, but it's like, that's not, to get started.
Okay, there we go. I have to get the YouTube Premium membership. Okay. So let me change the scene while the ad plays. Okay, so he's saying a lot of good stuff that I actually agree with, but I want to add nuance to. I believe, based off of what he was talking about, he did mention how, like, his parents weren't prepared when they had him. They weren't prepared when they had him, and that his parents were not, like, helpful in regards to, you know, raising him and teaching him how to be an outstanding citizen, figuring out ways to pour into him as a kid. It feels a little bit like he's kind of like low-key projecting his experiences, which is okay, because like your experience with your parents are the only experiences that you know. But I think what's very interesting about like his commentary is that I think this is a clear example, going back to like how I feel like motherhood is a scam and how I feel like having children is a scam. The reason why I believe he thinks his parents did clock in, like it felt like they were doing a job and it didn't really feel like they were like raising a child, is because I think a lot of parents underestimate how incredibly difficult it is to have kids. I do. And I think they just like look up to their parents, especially boomers. They look up to their parents in the 50s and 60s and they were like, oh, well, my mom raised 8 kids and she did it just fine. Not realizing that she raised 8 kids and she lost her mind. She was losing her mind. Not realizing that the dad was probably like neglectful because, you know, he didn't know how to handle the amount of kids that the mother was having. Maybe stepped out on mom. I don't know. Maybe had secret families. Like, let's talk about it. Like, there could be half brothers and half sisters, like, that you don't even know that you're a part of, that the father could have had. Or maybe the mother had secret families. I don't know. Or like a child out of what, like, I really don't know. I don't know. But what I'm saying is that I think the reason why there is resentment from people now who are much more aware as to whether or not they actually want to have kids is because we understand how difficult it is to have children. This is where I say that there are some benefits to social media now, because it makes the human experience a lot more personal and intimate. Like, you can see representation of yourself in all areas of the country, in all areas of the world. Like, you can just see that now. People that look like you, that think like you, that have evolved like you, live a life significantly similar to how you are or how you would like to now, because of access to the internet, access to social media, access to people just being vulnerable. But like back then, when his parents probably had him, his parents probably didn't have that. Like, his parents' only experience on how to have kids is like what their parents did and what they thought was right. And it's like, every generation, it gets harder and harder to raise kids. It gets more difficult to raise a child. It gets more difficult to find community for your child, to put your child in enrichment activities and all that. It gets really, really difficult. So I wouldn't be surprised if like his parents went in thinking one thing about parenthood and then came out of it like barely being able to do the best they can, because it's just not the reality of actually having children. And unfortunately, that's just kind of how it is for a lot of people who have kids, especially nowadays. I feel like women and fathers, I'm going to be fair, women and men are tricked into parenthood thinking it's one thing, not realizing that it is the most unpredictable, most difficult thing that you'll ever do, and will be even more difficult if you do not have enough money or resources to raise your child. So I kind of agree with him in that regard.
You're gonna stick. That's a big load of hooey. It's like, hey, you should have actually been on point, been focused, you know, put forth good effort to do the right stuff. You know, and our parents, they did not put forth effort to do the right stuff. They wanted to put in as little effort as possible. They essentially wanted us to raise ourselves, or to get raised by something that was not them. Because again, they just did not want to have to put in any effort or do any work themselves. You know, they were very lazy about stuff. And it's just like, I really want to dispel this myth, this ridiculous myth that, oh, your parents love you. Some people I've known do have parents who love them. Some people I've known do come from loving families. They exist. They're out there, but it's not the norm. It's not the norm. And I'm not going to say that my parents didn't love me or hated me all the time, that there was never moments of love, but for the most part, it was apathy. It was like, I have this kid and I have to be responsible for them, and I don't want to have to do that, you know? And the thing with a lot of these parents, they're not even able to be...
So I do agree here. It feels like this guy had parents that weren't ready to have kids, you know? But even parents who do have kids, again, I think it goes back to parents like totally underestimating how difficult it is to have a child. Very much so. Especially mothers underestimating how hard it is to have a child. Like for motherhood specifically, I personally am of the belief that motherhood and marriage, yeah, I know this is going to be a really unpopular opinion, are like the most harmful lifestyles for women. Like in my opinion, I know. I should not be saying that. Like, and especially for like this push, especially in Black spaces, for like women to want to get married, to want to have the ring, and to want to have a kid after the ring, and to only want to have the kid after they've gotten married and have the ring, which I do agree. Like if you're gonna have a kid with somebody, at least have some sort of commitment there. But like the problem is that even if you do get married as a woman, there is potential that the man will still neglect your family, and it will still be socially acceptable because it is expected for women to sit themselves down and raise the child. It is not socially acceptable for the man to sit themselves down and raise the child. And that's why I feel like marriage is a very predatory lifestyle for women. But then coupled with that, I also feel like there's flies. Why? I also feel like having kids is also very predatory for women as well. Because that is like, if marriage is like the social expectation for you to sit down, having a kid is the physical embodiment of the social expectation for you to sit down as a woman and raise the child. Look at Halle Bailey and DDG. I do believe that like if Halle Bailey did marry or didn't marry, but had a kid with like a legitimate actor. Like I'm thinking that guy who did The Last of Us, or not The Last of Us. No, excuse me. What's his name? When They See Us, that guy. Like if she had a kid with that dude, I don't think people would be as hard on her. And I think he, like, cause he's an actor, right? And he'd see probably like the benefit of like marrying somebody or like having kids with somebody like a Halle Bailey. Like he'd probably get in line. They'd probably play the power couple dynamic a little bit, and they'd probably like help build each other's careers without being horrendously unprofessional. I do think that if she had kids with somebody different, she would probably there wouldn't be I want to say her reputation's ruined, but there wouldn't be the drama that she's going through with DDG and how like public he is. So if she had a kid with Jarrell Jerome, I feel like she would have been okay. I feel like Jarrell Jerome is too busy trying to get this bread and be an actor that he doesn't have time to rant to a bunch of people on stream about how their BM isn't letting them see their child. You know what I mean? So
responsible for themselves. they can't even take care of themselves. And if you can't even take care of yourself, how are you supposed to take care of a child? Crazy. Real crazy. But again, they just want to plead, oh, we tried our hardest, we meant well, it wasn't that bad. And they think that that's like some get out of jail free card, that like their actions don't have any consequences and they can just dodge all accountability by just kind of saying this tired song and dance of, oh, well, we tried our best, we meant well, we wanted the best, or we had our own problems, and just, it's like, how do they consistently, just like, consistent criticism, consistent neglect, consistent abandonment, consistent disclusion, consistently not meeting your needs, consistently having all this drama and getting mad about stuff and freaking out about stuff and just consistently getting angry and flying off the handle, consistently gaslighting us, consistently, over and over again and again and again. It's like this whole thing of, oh, well, they loved you. No, they didn't. They did not love you.
Honeybook actually is...
Oh no, Honeybook. Okay, so let me change the scene while the advertisement plays. Okay, so he's right. He's absolutely right. And I'm glad that he's expressing his opinion, because we need to have a more serious conversation that I'm having right now, that I think it's a horrendous excuse as a parent, as a fully grown adult who decides that they are going to have children, who decides when they lay down and they don't swallow the cow, they don't swallow the nut, and they let the the happens, you know what this is, right? Like, that happens, and then they decide that they're going to have a kid. They decide that they're going to have a kid, whether their decision is through coercion or pressure socially, because like, it's not okay that women get abortions, right? Like, that's like up until now that there's a push to end pro-choice with the Supreme Court. Back then, all we had was really shame. And so like, if a woman wanted to get an abortion because she just wasn't ready to have a kid, it would be shame. Like, you're killing this child, you're killing this baby, when like, in actuality, like at 9 weeks pregnant, it's not even, it's a zygote, okay? And your kid is probably gonna suffer a lot more if you actually have the child and you are in poverty. So like, let's just not do that, okay? Let's just not okay. But I do think that it is a sorry excuse that a lot of parents have, where they say we did the best that we could. Because it's like, no, the best that you could do is making sure that you were ready to actually have a kid, instead of having, like, making it be like a happy mistake, or accidentally having a kid, or not being all the way prepared to have a child. And then you have the child, and now they're struggling and suffering, and you can't meet their basic needs. You can't pour into them. You can't perform outside of the standard of meeting their basic needs, which I've established is like cooking for them, cleaning for them, taking them to school, all of that. I'd also like to add as well that we also live in a society that does not nurture good parenting, right? Like, everybody got to work now. Everybody got to work. And so I don't know this guy's situation. I don't know if his parents had to work a lot. I don't know if his parents like were struggling to just like put food on the table, because that is very, very difficult to do. But like, society does not make it easy for people to support their children, which is also another reason why I myself like support their basic needs of their kids, like cooking, cleaning, and all of that, which is why I've decided like, I don't want kids, because I know that's going to be incredibly difficult with just how expensive everything is right now. So let's continue the video.
And they only cared about themselves, and they kind of just thought, well, whatever happens to my kid, who cares? All they really want to do is put up a good front for friends and community to make it look like they're good parents. That's all they really cared about, is just putting up that front, making that show. And that show, that front they put up, they want to say that that's like the same thing as love. And it's not, it's not. It's just it's a freaking front. And the thing is also is like, they also want you to throw them a parade because they did the bare minimum. They think that them doing the very bare minimum, they think the fact that they gave you food and clothes, some parents didn't even do that, but they think the fact that they did that is like, you should jump for joy and be so happy and be like, oh wow, my parents gave me food and clothes, you know? And it's really insane. It's really insane, you know? I've even had my own father tell me like, well, at least I didn't, you know, I didn't do inappropriate stuff to you, so, you know, what are you even mad about? You know, I've literally had my own father say that to me, and it's...
So, like, I agree. Again, this is stuff I was talking about earlier. I absolutely agree that, like, parents will use, well, I clothed and I raised you and I did all of these things for you, so be grateful. And it's like, you know, this video, I feel like this guy hasn't, like, accepted that, like, if your parents at least clothe and raise you, that is the best... That is good. That is good. That is good. And they should be doing that, right? Like, we have been conditioned as a society that, like, we should, like, children especially, that is like going above and beyond, but it really isn't. But if you do get those things in your childhood, you do get that is good. But also at the same time, that's like what you're supposed to do. Like, and that's why I say I put a lot of responsibility on parents. And it's like, when you have this kid, the expectation is to ensure that they have clothes on their back, is to ensure that they have food, is to ensure that they have a home, is to ensure that they have a place to go to, a good place to go to school, that they're well educated. Like, that's the expectation when you decide to have a child. Okay, like, hello?
It's like, yo, like, you want me to jump up and down because you didn't do that? Like, whatever.
I do think it's incredibly manipulative for him to say, for his dad to say, well, at least I didn't, like, diddle you. Like, what? That's weird.
He's just kind of being morbid, dark, whatever. I don't know, you know? I don't know, but it's like our parents are just weird, messed up people for the most part. And they have these narcissistic tendencies, and it's like, especially as an adult, like, I don't really have my parents in my life anymore. I don't do that. But for people who do, it's a burden. It's something you have to take on, and you're going to lose energy for it. And it's not like this. There's some people I know that are happy to see their parents, you know, but it's not most people. Most people, it's like this duty, this obligation. It's like, you got to go to work and do some job and not always do stuff you like. And you got to hang out with your parents, and, you know, you got to just punch the card, get it in. It's not pleasant, it's not fun, but just get it out of the way, you know? And it's like, man, if you're really feeling that way, like, your parents are not positive people. Your parents are not good people. If you dread being around them, and it's like this stressful thing every time they call you on the phone, and every time they text you or whatever, it's a stressful, like, oh boy, here we go again. You know, guess what? That's not someone who really loves you or cares about you or wants what is best for you. Parents are supposed to make sacrifices for their children, not the other way around. You know, I was so guilt-tripped as a kid. I'm going through the grocery store looking for good deals on stuff and trying to help my family save money, whatever, because, you know, I got it drilled into my head that I'm this burden, and I'm using up money and using up time and taking up space, and I'm just in the way and I can't do anything right, you know? And I had that so in my head that it's like, I have to sacrifice for these people.
So, yeah, I agree with everything that he's saying. I think it's very unfortunate. I think it's kind of rich that some parents expect their kids to take care of them because they took care of their kids that they decided to have. I also think it's especially interesting if you haven't established a relationship with your child where your child wants to take care of you, or your child feels like they are safe around you. You know, I do worry when I'm older. You know, my parents are getting up in age. My dad's like 72. I think they can support themselves. However, I am worried and I am concerned for the time where I might have to inevitably, like, take care of them, or what that would look like for me, because I can't afford to take care of them, let alone myself. And I also think that if you have a parent that has mistreated you or disrespected you or has called you out in any way, or you there's friction in the relationship. For example, with a lot of queer people or gay people, like their parents won't approve of their lifestyle, but then when something happens to their parents, they're like, hand out, I need money, I need to live with you, I need support. And it's like, well, you didn't approve of me and my existence, but you're expecting me to do a selfless thing of helping you in the name of, well, I did it for you first, even though you didn't like plan to be on this planet. You know what I mean? I don't think that's fair. There were times, because I was also raised by my extended family as well, my mom's side of the family, and it was mostly like women. So there would be times where I would feel like I get like, I'm not close to them at all. Like I would get like incredibly exhausted talking with them, like super, super exhausted. Like I would like tense up. Like I was just anxious because I didn't want them asking me questions about like what I was doing with my life, what I was doing for school, what I was doing in general. To this day, like I still just kind of don't want to hang out with them. Not just for that, but just because of the amount of like, do I want to say bullying? Like low-key like mean girl behavior. That's what I'm gonna say. Mean girl behavior, manipulative behavior, and like them trying to like manipulate me into doing things for them, but not really for like what I wanted to do. And so I can kind of resonate with him getting anxious about like seeing his parents wanting to hang out with them, knowing it's something that you have to do. Then again, you could go no contact, but I don't know if that's like socially acceptable for him to go no contact. So.
And it's like, and I didn't, and you know, it's just that they guilt trip you, they really do. And if my family was really short for money, that'd even be one thing, but my family wasn't even short for money. They just wanted to like jump on my back about something, you know. And I don't know, you know, I really don't know. It's just, it's a bunch of, it's ridiculous, it really is. And society will tell you, oh, every parent loves their child unconditionally. No, they don't. No, they do not. There's parents who will abandon their children in a very literal sense. We've all been abandoned in more of a metaphorical sense, where our needs are not met, we were not listened to, we were put off to the side, you know, our parents sort of just forgot about us. But there's people who are literally been abandoned. It's like, how can you say that parent, oh, they love their child so much? No, they don't, you know, they really don't. And a lot of this is about people who are bad parents not taking accountability for their own bad parenting. And, you know, when you see, and it's like, it's why we're so messed up and broken. It's why I'm so broken and messed up. And it's why society is so broken and messed up. Because society does not even care about good parenting. Good parenting is so low on the list of societal priorities. It's ridiculous. And it should be one of the highest, most important things, but it's not.
So you mentioned that parents are supposed to have like unconditional love for you, or like the expectation is that your parents are supposed to unconditionally love you. I just want to say that like the older I get, the more I realize that unconditional love like high-key doesn't exist. Like it's very, very hard for people to love individuals unconditionally. It's very difficult when we are groomed from a young age, from this world, from like where, like, I guess Western culture, right? That you should only love or give time to those that can do for you, you know? And to an extent that could like build community, which is good, but like most people's love is conditional. Most people's love is conditional. Like, for example, if you find out that your father was a predator, would you still love them? And I guess some people would say like, oh, well, like to go into religion real quick. I'm having a little deconstruction arc. Don't mind me, okay? But to go into religion real quick, they'll say you should love your enemy unconditionally. You should love your neighbor unconditionally. Love thy neighbor, blah blah blah. And my whole thing is that I think it gets really harmful when we demand people to love individuals unconditionally when they have so clearly messed up and they have so clearly hurt people. I think that is incredibly harmful. And so just as humans, I don't think we love unconditionally. I think that as long as the person like respects and honors us, then we respect and honor them. But if they hurt us in any way, shape, or form, I do think there is a push or a pressure for marginalized people to like love individuals unconditionally, marginalized people and women to like love the actions of those that hurt us, the oppressors that hurt us, the men that hurt us unconditionally. But I do think that is just not true, because on the other side of the coin, oppressors will not love us unconditionally, and like men also like won't love us unconditionally either. I don't know. So I do believe that, but yeah, no, there are a lot of parents that won't love their kids unconditionally. There won't. Like I said, you can come out as being gay and your parents can kick you out. And that's not unconditional love. And like, if you're a Christian, if your parents are Christian or you're born in a Christian household, they would think that they love you so much that in order for you to face the consequences of your actions, you have to get the gay out, you have to pray the gay away, you have to go to a conversion camp, or we have to kick you out. Like, they, in their mind, they think that's a form of love, which is so harmful. But like, in actuality, like, I don't think humans are capable of unconditional love. I think that's a lie that we sell to marginalized people or people who are different in order to convince them to put up with any form of abuse or bullshit that goes on in their lives. So
it's not. It's something that we as a society really could care less about. And, when you have all these just people who just turn out messed up, there's so many people who just turn out real messed up in the world and in society. And do we ever look to the parenting that they had? Do we ever look to the houses they came from? No, we just sort of say, oh, well, that happened, I guess. And no fault to the parents, no fault to their upbringing, none whatsoever, really. And, it's like they'll blame the child. They'll be like,
and so what the gag is about all of that, because I agree, like, we don't really, so I agree and disagree. I do think that when, we have criminals or serial harmers or predators and all that, I do think that they do look into the family life to see what that was about and what happened. However, I also think that a lot of what a lot of people fail to understand, which is why parenting is like a super selfish job, right? A lot of people fail to understand that, like, you could raise your kid expertly. They could not want for anything, that you could spoil them till the cows come home. They could not want for anything. They could go to the best of the best schools, have the best of the best jobs, do the best that they can, love you and honor you, and do all of these things that is outstanding, textbook definition of an outstanding child, right? And they could still end up screwed in the head. And a lot of that also, I feel like, comes from, like, a lot of parents aren't just the ones raising their kids. You got to take your kid to school. And your kid at school is spending like 5 to 7 hours a day around a bunch of other children that are from a bunch of other lifestyles and a bunch of other environments. And sure, they can learn a lot about how those lifestyles function and how those people and their culture function and all that. But then also you have to be very aware and account for the idea that, like, these kids, they might not have the best childhood. They might have not the best stability, and they might project that onto your child that does, and that could, like, affect them. Bullying now in 2025 is nothing like it's no, excuse me, bullying back then in like 2005 has nothing on the bullying in 2025. Bullying back then might have been like you have some bullies at school that pick on you, and then like you might have a fight in the playground, and then I don't know, maybe in a couple months it might be over, right? Or like you have like some mean girls that will like talk about you and be manipulative, but then like you guys get older and like squash that beef. Bullying in 2025 is because of like the internet and social media. MFers, like these crotch goblins are making group chats and taking photos of people in group chats, of children in group chats and discords on how much they hate their ops. Okay, all right, like what, like like can we talk about it? Like that is like so mentally exhausting. And then you throw in the internet as well, because like I said, I was nurtured as a kid. I was helicoptered as a kid, but I wasn't nurtured. So when it came to the point where it mattered, like I was monitored over things I couldn't do, but then I was also like a laptop was thrown in my face, like technology was thrown in my face at a very young age, and I was running amok on the internet. The internet high key raised me when I needed my parents to, when I needed my family to, when I needed my mom to sit me down and tell me like all the things she knew about sex and sex talk. The internet was doing that for me. The internet was doing that. The internet was teaching me about love and relationships when I had my first online boyfriend. I don't want to talk about that. We weren't really online boyfriends. He was just trying to get nudes out of me at like 16 years old. Anyway. But the internet, the like places where I could have used my parents and I could have needed my parents, like I just didn't have that, you know? And I think that's also why, for me personally, I gravitate so much towards like friendships, and I get like unusual attachment issues towards like my female friendships when they like take off, because you know, I don't think I got that in my mom, and I was just like looking for that. I didn't get that from my mom. I didn't get that from my aunts, because it's like I said, the youngest aunt I had was like in her 20s when I was like 2. So like what can they relate to? They're dealing with grown adult stuff, but also like, can you like see me as a child for a minute? Can you like understand me and see where I'm coming from for a minute? You know what I mean? And that just wasn't happening, unfortunately. So yeah. So yeah, your parents can do everything right, but then you could still be raised to be like an awful piece of shit crotch goblin, because like it's not just your parents raising you, it's like the world is raising you, and it, like, respectfully, the world has to raise you because you have to build character. Like homeschooling with love, unless your kid is like very, 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 very socialized. Very socialized. Like I'm talking like they have like 5-6 hours of homeschooling, and then they got community groups that they're involved in, enrichment classes and activities that they're doing. They're playing sports. Then homeschooling can be a dumpster fire, because you are literally sheltering your kid from the whole world and like ingraining a specific worldview onto your child on how they need to like live their life, or how they should live their life. And then you wonder why those kids are the ones who go absolutely buck wild when they're like in college or when they're adults. And it's like, well, that's why. Like, so you do need like other kindred other kindred spirits of your age to interact with and communicate to, but also there does need to, like, and this isn't so much the parents as much as it's like the education system. I do feel like a lot of these educators do not know how to like monitor or figure out when stop bullying that has gone too far. Like they just don't know what to do. Yeah, so it's not just your parents that are raising you, it's like the whole world as well, and how that impacts and affects you also. So let's keep going.
You turn out so messed up. Why did you end up like this? It wasn't us. Had nothing to do with us. And they'll gaslight, and they will blame the child and make it the fault of the child, when it was the parents who parented the child terribly, gave the child no attention. And when people have childhood abandonment issues, which most people do, it's like you have a hole inside of you that's like, why am I not a part of the family? Why am I not a part of the group? Why? How come I did not get the attention I needed? And it puts a hole in people, and that hole gets filled with addictions, bad friendships, bad relationships, bad marriage. That hole just gets filled with all kinds of toxic stuff. A whole manner of toxic stuff is what ends up filling that hole, and people end up really, really messed up by how their parents treated them. But society just acts like it's not a big deal, you know? It's not a big deal as long as the kids weren't being beaten or...
So, like, I disagree. I do think that now, at least with, like, our generation, we are taking it seriously. Like, it is a big deal how your parents raise you. Hence the reason why I think a lot of millennials are going no contact. A lot of Gen Z is going no contact with their parents because they're like, listen, if your behavior keeps... if you keep acting the way you are, you're not going to have access to me in your life. And I don't blame a lot of kids for doing that. I don't blame a lot of kids for putting their foot down and saying that. I almost like shake my head at the parents, these old adult parents, are like, what do they say? Like, when you turn 21, you're only like an adult for 1 year of your life. Like your age in adult years is 1, and then when you turn like 28, you're like, your age in adult years is like 8. Like, you're still new to this. Well, like a 40 or 60-year-old parent who clearly could have done better is gonna sit up here and be like, I don't like that our kids are going no contact. I don't think that's fair, and blah blah blah. And we did the best we could. And it's like, bro, you have been an adult for about like well over 40 years. Get your shit together. And like, especially with this, do you know how many times when I was like 15 or 16 where clearly the responsibility was on the parent, clearly the responsibility was on the adult, and they would twist and alter it in a way where me, a 16 or 17-year-old girl, just didn't take enough responsibility, didn't take enough initiative. That's what they would say. You need to take more initiative. I am 17. You need to be an adult. Like, so I completely understand the idea of like society putting it on you. In my case, like my parents kind of putting it on me and my family putting it on me when I, messed up. And granted, it taught me about accountability and how to be a lot more accountable in situations and taking more initiative in situations. But it also had taught me a lot about how fully grown individuals will refuse to own up and be responsible for their shortcomings. It taught me that too. It did. So,
doing my favorite thing.
Oh no, we have an ad. So we're gonna wait for the ad to like pass. Okay, skip.
That was really way on the surface. As long as it's subtle, as long as it was gaslighting, as long as it was manipulation, as long as it's something that cannot immediately be seen, as long as it's something that can be hidden and covered up, as long as we can hide it somehow and cover it up, it never happened. And we were great parents, with awesome parents, with an awesome marriage and an awesome relationship, and everything was great and amazing and da-da-da-da. And no, it wasn't. That's all a big lie.
So that's like another thing I've noticed about boomer parents is that they do not want to talk about like their shortcomings or their problems or like talk about things that have happened in the family. Like that is very, very hard. The movie Encanto kind of talks about all like the traumatic stuff that happened, like that Disney animated film. It's really cute. And like when you look at that Disney animated film, like they kind of talk about the stuff that like the family trauma that had happened within the family. And the big bad, the villain, isn't really like a person. It's just a theme, which I think is a very, very, probably one of the more mature Disney movies to come out. Like the theme of the big bad is the big bad of the movie is like family trauma and generational issues. And like, if you're not emotionally intelligent enough, you might say, well, oh, the grandma's the issue, the grandma's the problem. And I don't think so. I think the grandma truly did want best for her family, and was doing the best that she could. But to an extent, like it wasn't what her family wanted. It wasn't what the members of her family wanted. Like Isobel, she didn't want to be all perfect and pretty all the time. She wanted to be messy and dirty, you know? And who was the other? Was it Louisa? I think her name was the really strong muscle mommy. Yeah, Louisa Madrigal. Like, she was the one to, like, that had to be, like, super strong and, like, hold the family together. And she was, like, tired of doing that, you know? Hence the reason why she was so muscular, you know? You know what I mean? So there was just, like, a lot of themes in that movie that, like, talked about the villain isn't necessarily like a person as much as it's just a concept. And I think that it really honed in on like not talking about things like we don't talk about Bruno, you know what I mean? Like not talking about things and how that could like affect a family into generations. Even in my own family, there were black sheeps, I feel like, that people just don't talk about, whether they were like actually horrible people or like they just didn't want to talk about them. Most recently, like there was like not really a cousin, but like because we're not that close, like kind of a cousin, step cousin who was like I think a little bit younger than me, who was going through some growing pains being in her 20s and living with my second uncle, and that was like her step uncle, and like how difficult it was for her to navigate that. And like all the older women in my family, the aunts in my family position her as, like in the story, as being crazy, as like being mentally unstable and mentally uneasy, right? And I think it might be because of just their age and like the disconnect to how like mental health can impact you, but almost like none of them really ever focused on the like how she was affected by my step uncle or her stepdad, and like how she wanted to date, and she was like 22, which is perfect age to date on. Honestly, we should start having our kids like date, like group dates, all right? Not like be grown and shit, but like group dates at like 15 and 16. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but like she wanted to date at like 22 and engage in the dating experience, and like her uncle, her stepdad, my second uncle, was like, no, you can't do that. I don't want you to do that. You know, I want you to stay home, and you know, you can't talk to this guy, you can't be in a relationship with him. And it's like, bro, she's 22. And then you wonder why so many black girls get into the pipeline of being like the sheltered good girl to like single baby mama, because they didn't have like the tools needed to know how to date, the tools needed to understand when a guy is full of shit, to know what love looks like, and to also know what love doesn't look like. They don't have those tools because you're not letting them experience these things at like a young age, like at 15 or 16. And I'm not saying like be grown and have like premarital sex, like no, that's not what I'm saying. Like, but what I am saying is like have them engage with the opposite sex or their love interest, at least like a group date. Go through the pains of like getting broken, like dealing with a breakup for the first time. My first breakup was awful with my internet boyfriend. That was devastating for me, and I had to do that shit alone, but it built character. So we weren't even internet boyfriend and girlfriend like that. But anyway.
That's all a bunch of freaking propaganda they tell you. And they tell it to you from the time you're a little tiny baby. So you're like, okay, like, I've been conditioned my whole life to believe that, like, these parental guardians I have are these great people. And you kind of realize, you're like, holy crap, they're not. Holy crap, they're not. Man, you know. Man. And I really think for like bad parenting, like there needs to be more accountability for it. We need to kind of look at that more as a society and say, whoa, hey, like you got to spend time with your kids. Not cool. You have to give your kids positive encouragement. Not cool. You have to give your kids actual discipline, not freaking out at them and yelling at them and going crazy on them, but just setting actual boundaries and letting them know, like, all right, like, you should do that, you shouldn't do that, you know, just basic kind of stuff so they can function and be normal adults, normal human beings. But we have a lot of people who cannot function as adults and cannot function as human beings, and we have a lot of people who are really broken badly. I was broken very badly by my childhood.
So a lot of this is really good stuff. But I also think that, like I said, I think a lot of, like I said, parents just aren't aware of what they're getting themselves into. And, like, especially for raising, like, your first kid, you know, like, you don't really know how to raise a kid. Like, you don't, like, you're just it's like trial and error and do your best, right? Like, trial, error, do your best. You know what I mean? And so a part of it is on the parents because they decide to have kids. But I also think socially, it's just, like, really difficult to have kids, bro. Like, it's just difficult to have kids. It's difficult to raise them. It's difficult to support them. Like, you need a lot of money and resources in order to raise a kid effectively. And then even still, they might end up fucked up in the head. So,
and I'm sure most people watching this are. And it's like, whenever like someone who has addictions or is in Alcoholics Anonymous or whatever, they always go back to the family of origin because that's where it started. That's where all the brokenness started, is in the parents who did not want to do their job. And, you know, and the whole rose-colored glasses thing, you know, you're going to hang out with your parents, your dad's going to say, oh, remember this time we went hiking that one time and had fun once, you know, and your mom's going to, oh, look at these cute baby pictures of you. Oh, wow, it was so great, wasn't it? Well, they're not actually looking at the whole picture of things. They're not actually looking at what really even happened. They just want to pretend that things are good and okay when they are not. And
I feel like parents who want to pretend that things are good and okay are parents who also don't want to address, like, conflict that happens in the family, kind of like in Kanto. And so I also do think that, like, just like in general, there are times and seasons and people where there'll be really, really good times, or the good times might not be there. It might be struggling, but hey, maybe there was this really good moment that you had, like, and so maybe you have a picture to remember that, you know. And even though you were kind of struggling at that point, you know, there is a memory there of, like, when you had some semblance of happiness. So I do think, like, parents cling on to those pictures to remember, like, the good times, you know, even if it wasn't all peachy keen the time that the picture was taken or the time that y'all had the hike. I do feel like parents do latch on to those moments, maybe to convince themselves of how good their parenting is, even if it's not that great.
This whole pretending act, it's so harmful. I used to really, like, I guess, advocate for my parents. I used to really, I mean, I respect my parents as parents, I guess, you know. I have a basic parental respect for them, you know, whatever they did raise me, but, like, this whole, like, I used to really go to bat for them. And I used to really, like, you know, say, oh, they're good people, and, you know, I used to really, like, be, like, on their team, I guess. And now I'm like, I can't be on the team of that, you know. I used to really believe their lie, believe their BS, you know. And, you know, my parents, they ended up getting divorced, but they even lied to me and put on a whole show that their marriage was good. And, you know, my brother was the one who ended up actually telling me about, you know, the divorce and stuff. You know, I'm the youngest. He was older because they didn't even have the courage to even, you know, to even tell me what was going on and be honest and stuff. And it's like, yeah, like the whole time they've just been deceiving me. And
so I'm going to talk about this because this is something that my mom did. Again, helicopter parenting, but not like nurturing their child at all. As a parent, I feel like, even though I am a childless woman, so I really shouldn't speak, but I do feel like in my heart of hearts, as a parent, you really have to, like, you have to teach your kids to talk about the hard stuff. My mother never explained to me why our house, like, we had to move immediately, almost immediately, out of our house in, what was it, 2008, during the housing crisis, because my mom was a little classist and she like prided herself on not having her house foreclosed on, even though everybody around her had their houses foreclosed on because of like the financial crises that were going on. She would always talk about the people who would be like, oh, they had their house foreclosed on and that's unfortunate for them, and like whatever, like, you know, they're just not, like, they're not financially stable, and that's what they get. And then lo and behold, our house was foreclosed on. And she was so ashamed over it, and I don't blame her, because like, you get this big ego where you're like, well, you know, our finances are tough, but at least our house wasn't foreclosed on, you know. And then it's like the one thing that, you know, you thought you had control over, you don't. And so she never told me why why we had to move almost immediately out of our first house in 2008. And so for like years, as we moved from house to house to house, as the finances got tougher for the family, as the fights started escalating to like super toxic, like damaging property type of stuff, like as it got that bad, right? Hi, Heaven. Hey. Yeah, it was pretty rough. Heaven said that must have been rough. It was pretty rough. It was a lot a bit traumatizing. Like, it's probably the reason why I function the way I do as an adult right now. But going back to what I was saying, like, my mother never talked to me about like what happened between 2008 and 2012 of us having to, not even 2012, like even in college, of them having to move from house to house to house. I think I knew in like 2012 why we had to keep moving and what was going on financially, because at that point I was like 18. But like, that would have really, like, it would have been tough for me. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a pretty sensitive being when I was younger, and I think that's because my parents did their best. They were trying to protect me in the best way that they knew how, and I'll always give that to them. But I think it is horrendously, like, the worst thing you can do as a parent is to avoid talking about the hard stuff when needed. My father had a heart attack a couple years ago. Ex's lore, I know, but my father had a heart attack a couple years ago. It was very mild, and I think he has a pacemaker right now. But he had a heart attack, and my mother didn't want to share any of the details with me. Like, I had to literally pry them out of her, and to this day I still don't like know what exactly happened and what the details are. And again, it's that problem of like, okay, I am like 23, or like, I was 2018, I was like 25, 26, no, 24. I'm like 24. Okay, like, you gotta like, you gotta tell me what's going on, okay? Because that's like my father, all right? Like, that shit is annoying. Like, you have to talk to your kids. You have to, you know, like, talk your kids through the hard stuff and just kind of sit them down and explain what's going on. I never got that from my parents at all. Even like, there was a time where they were worried about me going to college. Like, they did not want me going to college out of state. They wanted me to stay in Connecticut and either go to the University of Hartford or UConn. And that just was not going to happen for me. I'm glad I trusted my gut, because like, that wasn't going to happen. I would not have survived. I think I would have ended up worse, honestly, if I went to University of Hartford or UConn. I'm forever grateful that I had the privilege of moving to Atlanta for college, okay? But they were like so worried that I wasn't acclimated to college life and all of that. And like I said, they thought I was going to end up like 22, drop out. And let me tell you, it would have been easy if I had gone to UConn or University of Hartford, because I already didn't want to be in raggedy ass Connecticut anyway, right? And so I would have found love anywhere I could. I would have come here, and then like, we weren't having conversations about the sex talk, okay? We weren't having conversations about birth control. That's another thing. When you shelter these black girls, right? These young promising black girls, and you don't have the conversation about like, girl, you need to get on birth control. Girl, you need to wear a condom. You need to wear, not just wear a condom. You need to get on birth control and you need to wear a condom. And if you're going to take the pill, you got to take it every day. I know it hurts, but you got to get the IUD. I will go to the clinic with you so you can get the IUD. Like y'all are not having those conversations. You're not having the sex talk. And then y'all freak out when like you're like sheltered, good-mannered, very intelligent 17-year-old black child or early 20-year-old black girl ends up pregnant. Like, well, you didn't raise them. You didn't give them, you hid things. You didn't talk about stuff. And so what this dude is talking about, where he's talking about like how his parents didn't really go into details about why they had a divorce. Bad, incredibly harmful. Because like him as an adult now, like how is he going to learn from the mistakes of his parents' failed relationship of what not to do in order to keep a marriage going? Like, how is he going to learn that if he's not like going through the evolution of like their family relationship and the divorce? Like especially if you're gonna if your kid's having a divorce, you need to sit your kid down and be like, okay, so the marriage isn't working out because of the finances. The marriage isn't working out because we're fighting all the time. The marriage isn't working out because someone stepped out. Like, you guys have to have that with your child. Like, you can't protect your child because they're gonna end up resentful. Like, I was so resentful when my mother would not explain why we had to move out from house to house until my dad had to tell me like, well, it's because it was foreclosed on. And like, I was older and it was unfortunate. And I do remember telling my friends, like, yeah, our house got foreclosed on and it sucked. And I remember my friends being like, okay, everybody's house gets foreclosed on. I don't know if those are, I don't know. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the oversharer. I don't know. I think it's like me mixed with oversharing and us just being young and not knowing how to be like good friends, right? So like maybe that's what the problem was. But you know, like, my parents hid a lot from me that I ended up having to learn on my own, which really didn't help when I like needed them. Like I yearned to talk to my father like in my early 20s about love and relationships and like what I was going through. I yearned for it. And then like my aunts, who, because it like meant a lot to me, I guess back then, to have like a father figure like sit up there. Now it doesn't mean that much to me anymore, honestly, but back then it meant a lot to me to have like a father figure be like, these men ain't shit, stay in those books. Like, that's all I wanted him to do. And I remember I called him up. I was having a conversation about how like this guy I thought liked me didn't like me anymore because I said like I wasn't all that interested, so I guess I friend zoned him. Which I'm still of the belief that the friend zone doesn't exist, but I also understand that like guys like you should allow for someone to be hurt if they're rejected, right? So I understand both ends of the spectrum, but like I remember I was talking to my dad and he was like, well, why are you worried about that anyway? Like what is this even about? Why are you calling me? Like, I'm busy. And I was just like, damn, I really needed you, Dad. I needed you. And then the women in my family that I would talk to, they didn't want to even have conversations about sex because, like, you know, they're Christians, they're socially conservative, not like politically, but like as most Black people are. As they get up in age, they become very socially conservative, very involved in their church and everything. And so when I had my first boyfriend and my aunt found out he was coming over, my aunt let me know. She was like, you can't spend any time with him. And if you have urges, you need to call me so we can run off together and, you know, deal with those urges together. I don't know what that meant exactly. Like what urges that were like, I don't think it was supposed to be like something like sexual, but like, or inappropriate, but it was just kind of weird. And needless to say, when my boyfriend did come to visit, because it was a long distance relationship, I did not call her when I wanted to go see him at the hotel he was staying at. Are you kidding me? But like, that's how delusional they were. Like, they could not speak to me like an adult. They could not give me reasonable adult advice as like an early like 20 some odd year old girl. Like, that woman, they could not do that. And then it's like, you do that shit to your daughters and you wonder why they end up pregnant. You wonder why they end up pregnant with child. Because, like, you didn't sit them down be like, ma'am, you need to wear a condom. You need to not let him inside of you. You need to swallow the cow. As my aunt told me, a 30-year-old me, about swallowing cows. I've been known to swallow the cow. The fuck? I don't be swallowing cows. But like, anyway, like that's a figurative phrase. I don't jizz is disgusting to me. But anyway, like, you're just not having these conversations with your daughters. You're not having these conversations with your kids. You're not. So, like, the idea that, like, black girls are raised and black sons are loved. Y'all are not raising your black sons. Y'all need to start raising your black sons. I spoke about this in my last stream where I said you need to teach these black sons that, yes, they are loved. Yes, they are honored. Yes, you should support them. Yes, you should prop them up and lift them up. But they are not white men. Okay, and society will tell that time and time again as they start brushing shoulders with these high-profile white guys with high-profile resources, and then as soon as they fuck up, they will be reminded that they are not white men. They end up looking dumb in the face like Shannon Sharp. They end up thinking that they can get away with like grooming employees like Tyler Perry. They end up thinking that they can do whole smear campaigns that can help them, even though they're like blatant like criminals and menaces to society, like Tory Lanez and Chris Brown. Chris Brown really would be where we want him to. Like he would be, I wouldn't say he would be like a Michael Jackson equivalent, right? But he would be like Michael Jackson adjacent. Like he would be in the conversation with Beyonce about who's the best performers of all time. The reason why he isn't is because of him moving around like he a whole Caucasian male. Okay? Like he like anyway, going back to this, okay? You can't avoid conflict with your kids. You have to talk to your kids about the hard stuff. It builds character. It teaches them how to work through things, okay? Because now this guy doesn't even know what a good marriage or a bad marriage looks like because he just knows that mom and dad divorced and there's no details. And now it's like unfortunate that the older son has to play parent, which you should not have kids and expect your older child to take care of the kids. That's the worst thing you can do as a parent. And then they have to play parent and explain to their younger brother what the fuck is going on. Not cool. Anyway, moving on. It makes me wonder if he's like a younger brother or a middle child.
It's just...
Oh, so Heaven, I see your comments. So Heaven's commenting. We have people commenting now. Yay. Heaven said, there comes to a point where it just seems weird. You got to talk about it. And I think she's talking about like having conversations with your kids. I agree. Yes, you have to have conversations with your kids. And that's funny, those urges. Yeah, my like that, like, and then they wonder why I'm not close to them, because I'm not going to have conversations about them, about love and like my sex life and all of that stuff. If like when I needed you, like in my late teens and in my early 20s, I needed you guys to give me unfiltered advice that wasn't based on like religious platitudes. Just be honest. Just come come down to earth for a second. Put yourself in my shoes when you were in your early 20s, when you were in your late teens, and what it was like when you had your first boyfriend, or what it was like when you had like your first real heartbreak. Like I needed you guys and you guys weren't there. And so I had to go through that on my own. And thank God, the Lord, that I am not preggers, that I didn't end up having a single child. Like I didn't end up being a single baby mama. But to all of our fallen soldiers that ended up that way, because of the lack of education that their parents did not give them, because of the lack of experiences that their parents did not allow them to have, because of the lack of talking about the really hard conversations. You cannot do that. And then like as a parent be like, but I thought I did everything I could. No, you didn't. You did not teach your kid how to exist as an adult, how to handle these experiences. So no, you didn't.
It's real ridiculous. And realize that these people are they're putting on a fake show. They're doing propaganda. They're not being real or honest with you. They're not actually dealing with issues and talking stuff out. And they're not taking any accountability. They're always trying to make you, the child, into the problem. You have a problem. We're going to send you to some therapist, and you're going to get a diagnosis put on you. And we're going to pop you on some pills because you got a problem, you know? I managed to avoid that, luckily, but I know a lot of people that went down that road. You're a problem.
Interesting.
We're going to send you to some boot camp thing to get you disciplined or whatever. You know, you're a problem. That's what they do. Rather than looking at themselves and saying, man, how am I raising my kid? How do I talk to my kid? Am I positive and loving with my kid? Or am I taking out my bad day on my kid, you know? With a lot of these parents also, like, if you're a kid and you got some little league or some swim lessons or whatever, like, they can barely even make it to pick you up from that, you know? It's like, for them to even show up to pick you up from something, when you're a little kid, you're waiting outside for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, the swim teacher or the coach or whatever is like kind of looking at his watch like, can't leave you here alone, we gotta wait for your parents to come pick you up, and they're taking their sweet time, and I'm kind of thinking, I'm like, man, are they even gonna show up? Like, they're just gonna leave me here, you know? But again, they think that that's all fine, you know, and it's not, whatever. I mean, for me, it wasn't a one-time thing. It was always like, all right, we're waiting here for mom to pick us up. Okay, you know, someone called the coach on the phone. Now my dad's coming to pick me up because mom couldn't make it. And all right, now dad's trying to, you know, now he's got to leave work early because your mom couldn't. And now your dad's mad. And I remember I'm just thinking, like, how come two people can't just figure out driving somewhere, putting the kids in the car, driving home?
Okay, so I'm going to pause right here. First and foremost, I will say that, like, this is what I mean by, like, parenthood, motherhood, and, like, women having children. Like, that is all, like he said, like, I feel like it's all propaganda because, like, little stuff like this can get very difficult. Like, I don't think women understand that, like, how much work they have to do as a mother. Like, they're not, like, it is socially expected for them to raise their kids, socially expected of them to take them to sports, to take them to hobbies, to carpool, to be a maid, to also be still sexually sought after by their husband. Like, it is just tough. And then, like, them trying to figure out, like, carpooling situations and how to take care of their kid and, like, what their kid needs to do, that could also be like that first of all, that should be worked out with simple communication, whether you're divorced or not. But like I said, like, nobody puts that into account. Like, how do you organize things so that they stay on a schedule? And it almost makes me wonder, like, were his parents, like, organized enough to know how to even manage themselves? You know, like, I feel like if you can't manage yourself as an adult, what makes you think you can manage, like, a little human? Like, if you cannot efficiently manage yourself as an adult, what makes you think you can officially manage a little human? You can't. And so he was talking about how his parents, you know, never took initiative or never took accountability and always made the kid the problem. They're the problem. Now, here's the thing. I've had that a lot, where I wasn't necessarily blamed, but it was always, well, where can you hold yourself accountable? And I learned to hold myself accountable. But like I said, in learning the whole, like, accountability, I also learned where the adults failed me. Like, I learned where it was like, okay, I cannot be socially responsible. I cannot be responsible for where y'all haven't refused to develop the skill of accountability. As a 17-year-old, as an 18-year-old, as a 22-year-old. Like, you guys in adult years have been on this planet, like, as an adult for, like, 20 years, like, age 20 in adult years, right? I am 22. I just became an adult, like, a year ago. I'm 2 years at this stuff. I don't know what I'm doing, and y'all are demanding me to, like, hold myself accountable before y'all actually hold you guys accountable. Yeah, heaven, if you can't manage yourself, how the hell are you going to manage children? And I think that's another thing. But, like, really quickly, like, you know, accountability. I feel like boomers like to throw, like, we also throw around the accountability conversation, but I feel like that's like a way that a lot of boomers and older parents try to deflect where they have fucked up. And I also think it is horrible. My parents never did this, and I think this also might be because that this also might be why my mom was hesitant to take me to therapy, though there are some therapists that won't put your kid on medication, right? And you just have to make sure that like you find a therapist that will like actually work your kid through like enrichment, like stuff, not even enrichment stuff, but like helpful coping mechanisms in order to learn how to function as, you know, as a human, and eventually as a child, and eventually as an adult, right? But I do remember in the 2000s that a lot of teachers and a lot of therapists would work with kids, and they would push drugs on the children. And this isn't me saying that I am like this isn't some anti-vax conversation, okay? I am pro-medicine over here. I am very pro-medicine. But when it comes to like mental health for kids, I'm not going to be responsible. I'm not going to take up the mantle of like what you should give to your child in order for them to function. But what I will say is I would be hesitant if a therapist or a teacher is urging you to get a prescription for your child before actually getting to the root of the problem of what's going on. And maybe if you do get to the root of the problem, maybe medication might be required, though I do feel like that should be an absolute resort, and I don't think it's in the best interest to immediately go to medication in order to help your child with whatever problem. And I'm also like especially hesitant to give medication to a kid who's going through mental health situations. Like I think there's ways to work through it. But like I said, I'm not really a parent, so I don't know what it's like. I don't know. I really don't know. And that's just not good parenting in my opinion. Like if you know that your child is a problem, or if your child is facing issues, you shouldn't pose them as being a problem. And you should, as a parent, do your job to work with a good chunk of therapists and go and sift through a good chunk of therapists to ensure that your child gets the best treatment. And you should be very, very hesitant if a therapist is pushing for your child to get on medication almost immediately. Because unfortunately, not all medications, but like some prescriptions that are given to us only placate the symptoms. They don't get to the root of the problem. And sometimes you might have to get medication depending on how bad the symptoms are. But like that should be a last resort. You know what I mean? In my opinion. But also I'm not a parent, so I'm not in control of like what you should do with your child. But I don't know, that like that's not good. Or like sending your kid to a boot camp. Those boot camps are incredibly abusive. You should not send your child to a boot camp. I don't know. I just think it's a result of like parents failing to pour into their kids. And I also think it's a result of them not having the ability to pour into their kids with how difficult it is just to live right now. In my humblest opinion.
It's not really that complicated. But the thing is like...
Oh yeah, and Heaven, I agree. If you can't manage yourself, how the hell are you going to manage children? Exactly. Like, that's like one of the biggest reasons why I don't want kids. It's like, I don't even know, like I haven't even successfully learned how to be an adult. I don't have a car, bro. I don't have a car. How the fuck am I going to be a mom with no car? Like, hello? I haven't even like stepped out of the country outside of Canada. Not even on a cruise. I've been on Cruise Talk lately. That shit looks fun. I haven't done that. I haven't traveled. Like, there's just so many things that I haven't done. What do you mean I have to manage a whole human? Me and my partner are talking about having a dog. or like a pet. And I'm like, okay, that's a big I'm like, that's a big responsibility. Like, let's just slow down. Like
our parents were like not emotionally stable, solid people. They were these like wrecks, you know. And it's like, if you're gonna raise a child, get yourself right emotionally and mentally first, as best that you can. Don't just be totally broken and wrecked and messed up and like just not even able to freaking handle life. And then you're like, no, I'm gonna raise a child. And it's like, well, that kid's gonna turn out messed up. And, you know, everyone I've talked to who's like been to jail, had addictions.
So that's another thing. So in his parents' defense, I'm going to assume his parents are boomers or a little bit older. They were not taught to like go to therapy and work out their problems. And they were taught that therapy bad, that they're going to throw medication at you, which is not true at all. You do not have to go or deal with a therapist or a psychiatrist where they're just going to throw medication at you. They will give you like coping mechanisms and exercises that you can use in order to be an effective like human, right? But a lot of parents like mental health and therapy and all that shit, like that is a very new phenomenon. Okay, like I come from the era of like, if you're depressed, pray it away. You're not depressed because you're like you're not in bed all day. If you're depressed, read this read this book about how not to be depressed. So I wouldn't put it too much on the parents that they didn't get at this point they should probably heal. But like when you were raised to think that if you go to therapy, that means that you're quote unquote crazy, and being crazy is bad, and like that is just like a social like a very social change that like that's a very like social expectation that a lot of people don't really have back then. Words. I'm trying to make sense. Hold on. Let me think about what I'm going to say. Socially, it wasn't acceptable for like boomers and older people to go to therapy without them being seen as like crazy or not right in the head. You know what I mean? Which isn't good, because now we are dealing with a decade of people who are more than willing to go to therapy and self-actualize, and we encourage that. However, in the most recent years, like with all this self-help stuff that's out, I don't know, I've kind of seen like a backlash towards going to therapy, which, like, if anything, if you got to talk to anybody, if you got to spend your money on anybody, spend your money on a therapist. Okay, like, don't spend your money, and it's going to take some time, and you're going to have to go through therapist after therapist. It's going to take some work. One therapist might work for one thing, another therapist might work for another. But outside of them being able to kind of pinpoint why you feel the way you do, I feel like they can also help in like pinpointing your weak points to ensure that like you are functioning in the best way you can. You know what I mean? So, but like, unfortunately, older people have been discouraged from going to therapy. So
everyone I've talked to who's had issues like that has always come from a messed up house. Every single time without fail. Maybe there's one person I've known that didn't come from a messed up house, but you know, 10 people, 20 people, out of all of them, only one of them came from a decent house. The rest of them grew up horror stories. And so many people are still just in contact with these parents that they have, you know, into their 30s, 40s, 50s, freaking 60s, whatever. And it's like, man, at what point are you going to just get rid of the problem? At what point are you going to say no to this problem and either set serious boundaries and be like, hey, we can hang out like once a year, or be like, we're not talking at all? Depends on how bad of a case they are. Depends on how much they have their hooks in you. If they have their hooks in you bad, you got to go no contact. But if you've already set some boundaries and we're able to create some distance, maybe you can still see him a bit. I don't know, but you know, I really wish things were different for me. I really wish sometimes that I was from a different family, you know? And I'll meet people who had parents that loved them, and it's like, whoa, this person has self-esteem. Whoa, this person has confidence. Whoa, this person is not constantly feeling like they're going to be rejected or abandoned. You know, this person does not have all this social anxiety. This person is like confident in their own skin. How did that happen? Oh, they had parents who loved them. They had parents who loved them and cared about them and like took care of them, and now they're like confident.
Heaven, you asked who is he? Who is who? What are you asking? Like this guy, this is just a random creator I found on my algorithm on my other YouTube that I wanted to talk about. He's basically talking about how parents, like, our parents didn't love us, but he goes into detail but as to why they think so. I also think that he said that his parents were divorced, right? But some parents who end up divorced end up raising like the best kids. My parents were together and they fought so much that at some point I was like, okay, why don't you guys actually just get a divorce? Like, maybe when I was younger, I prided like my parents in not getting a divorce, right? But as I got older, I was just like, okay, especially now with like the amount of resentment that my mom has not just raising me. I don't think she has resentment raising me. I think she's happy that she was able to see me grow and develop, but I think she has resentment in like her career literally being put on hold. I would have been like, y'all should just get a divorce. Like, especially if my mom tells me now, like, you know, I'm done with your father. Sometimes she'll say that, you know. I'll just be like, okay, then get a divorce. Like, Mom, like, you're like 60, just get a divorce. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Heaven says, oh, okay, I thought his parents were a YouTuber and he was a former YouTube kid. No, he's actually not a former YouTube kid. This is just like a random dude on the internet that had some really interesting takes about parenthood that I wanted to talk about, because I think he has some points, but I also think there's like a bigger picture here. And so when he's saying that, like, you know, his parents didn't work on themselves, his parents didn't do the best in raising him, I do think there are reasons as to that, like, it's just like social reasons as to why, which I have talked about early on in this video.
And doing well and happy and like, you know, doing good in life. People that didn't, you see it. You really do. And, you know, I really want to dispel this myth that, you know, and it's just a myth of like idealizing things. It's a myth of rose-colored glasses. It's a myth of always assume the best in everything, no matter what. And it's like, no, don't always assume the best in everything. Be realistic. Be real about things. You know, if my parents really loved me, they would have taught me how to ride a bike. If my parents really loved me, some of the stuff I had to go through, I would not have had to go through. A lot of craziness I had to go through in life would have been
So I think that a lot of kids have to go through some sort of craziness in their life. And I also think that like a lot of parents, where they fail is not learning how to prepare their kids for the craziness or the hardships of life. Best way to do that, as this guy mentioned early on in the video, is conflict, and teaching your kids about conflict, or when bad things happen, trying to explain to them the bad things so that they know how to cope with it, so that they have a coping mechanism instead of just hiding it from them when there are so clearly things going on. You know, if my parent, like, I consider the argument, if my parents loved me, they would have taught me how to drive. And yeah, they would have taught me how to drive, and by the time I was 20 I would be able to like know how to like drive around, uh and be more independent, because my mom did not want that for me, and I never liked that my parents were like, well, you gotta push for us to drive. Like, no, you're the parent, you need to do your job, okay? But also I understand that they were working really hard, and so they weren't able to, and I also understand that this world doesn't like allow for people to raise their kids properly. Like, it's like an uphill battle. Like, you really got to have a lot of things working for you.
Avoided. I would have been set up much better for adulthood. I would not have had to have gone through. I had to go through a lot. I
also think that the most important thing that you can also teach your kid too is like simple adulting things, like driving. Like, you need to teach your kid how to drive, finances. Like, even if you don't have a lot of money, like, I think it's difficult for a lot of people to teach their kids how to handle finances if they're not financially literate themselves. I think teaching them how to pay taxes, teaching them how credit works, teaching them like how to budget, even if you don't have enough money, that's very, very helpful. But I just do feel like a lot of people aren't financially literate themselves, that they don't know what they're doing. But like, even simple things like writing a check, like, that's important. Job applications, like, that's important.
Stuff growing up. I've gotten into it in previous videos, but I'm not going to get into it here too much. I just don't feel like I'm packing all that, but I've had to go through some difficult times. My parents sent me away to these crazy boarding schools that were really strict, and there was a lot of stuff. There was a lot of stuff going on.
So I'm going to stop him right there. It seems like his family was like good financially, right? But like, it seems like his parents were incredibly neglectful towards him. And so like, I might talk about this later in detail, but like, in this video, I get the vibe that like he was probably very well off as a kid financially, but like socially, not so much. And it kind of showed with his parents. And that also, like, that can also tie into the idea that as a parent, like, having money and resources can also not be enough for your kid. Like, you have to nurture your kid. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of why, like, some of the things that he's saying, like, a part of me is just like, oh, okay, but your parents did the best that they could. But also another part of me is like, well, your parents did the best that they could, knowing what it would involve in order to be an effective parent. So like, I see both sides, and I lean towards like what he's saying, because I do believe that a lot of parents, especially older parents, just don't like want to hold themselves accountable for their shortcomings or what it takes to actually raise a kid. You know what I mean? So,
and they don't even want to take ownership for their own
yeah, Heaven said that money only goes so far. It does. Like, it's not just like I said earlier, the prerequisite is ensuring that your kid does not have to want for anything financially. So that means that they have clothes on their backs, their food is taken care of, their schooling is met, the things that they like want, like, they should be able to have. That should be like the bare minimum. And then everything after that is like where the real parenting starts. But we have been conditioned with like a lot of the things that have gone on in the world, how difficult it is for people to obtain wealth and build wealth. I think we have been conditioned to think that in and of itself, having clothes on your back, being fed, not having to want for anything, financially, being able to go to the best schools, like that is just like better. Like, that is like the ship gold standard of parenthood. And no, that's not. Like, you still have to nurture your kid, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of people, I think a lot of boomers, and I think a lot of millennials, and like just parents in general, are realizing that it takes so much more than just like the bare minimum. And I think it's because we have been conditioned to receive and see how people struggle with less than that, with like poverty levels of parenting that like it is a treat just to have a parent be like, yeah, I put them through school, I put clothes on their back and I fed them. That's a treat. Just because like a lot of like fathers like abandon their kids, it's a treat to just see a father in the household, but like he might not actually be raising a kid. He might just be emotionally like just out and not wanting to take care of the kid, letting the mother do everything. That's how my dad was a little bit, maybe a lot of bit. We don't really have too much in common to talk about. So like, yeah, my mom was the one who like really like raised me. My dad was just kind of there. He worked though. So.
Decisions. They wanted to act like I chose all this stuff, and it was all my idea. You know, from the time I was 6 years old. My idea, the 6-year-old was making the decisions. The 12-year-old was making the decisions, not them. You know, this the way they skate accountability, and they try to put it all on the child. Oh, the child, my 8-year-old spilled milk on the floor. What an idiot! What a flawed, horrible child. I don't even know if I want them anymore. You know, and they don't say that exactly, but you kind of get that vibe as a kid, where you're like, if you screw one little thing up. You say one little wrong thing, you make one little mistake, it's like, you can kind of see, it's like, whoa, now my parents are like, they're very passive-aggressive and disappointed in me. That was my parents. Some parents would start yelling and screaming at their kids and stuff. My parents were just like, well, like, you're a real idiot, like, you're a screw-up, you can't do anything right, you know, really. And
so I got both of that. Like, my family would, like, yell at me, and then as I got older, and the yelling didn't work, they would like yell at me when they thought I had attitude, right? Like when I had attitude, and my attitude would just be like me responding, like what, like not even like what. They'd be like, you know, call your aunt. I'd be like, okay, I'm calling her, and then they'd be like, what is this attitude that she has, you know? But then they would expect me to speak up for myself every time, even though from like 5 to like 13 years, no, 15 years old, they wanted me seen, not heard. And then when I was like 16, they were like, she needs to be an adult, she needs to start speaking up for herself. And then when I would speak up for myself, or when I would express emotions or how I didn't think something was fair, it was like not like that. And I did not like that either. And I think what I can't stand about fully grown adults, what I really can't stand about fully grown adults raising children, is that you cannot sit up here and demand accountability for a minor. Like, how fucking dare. I hate that shit. Like, they're going to mess up. They're a minor. You can teach them about accountability and knowing what they are doing, like them being like aware of like what they're doing wrong and owning up to their actions. But you also, as a parent and as like a parental figure, have to understand that you are responsible for that child. Therefore, you have to also acknowledge where you messed up and where you need to hold yourself accountable. And I like do not like parents who do that, who like throw it on the kids, that if they bring up trauma from like 12 or 15 or 16 or like, you know, 10, it's like, well, you wanted to do this. This is what you want to, they're 10. You're the adult. See this, and this is why I don't really have a lot of sympathy for like parents when it comes to them actually having children, because you knew what you were getting yourself into as an adult, laying down with another person and deciding to have a kid. You knew exactly what you were going to get yourself into. And like, you cannot put all this blame on another human that you raise and potentially might have failed at raising because they're not grateful. They have a right to be ungrateful. You know what I mean? Like they did not ask to be here. I think that's a big mind fuck for a lot of boomer parents and Gen Xers, is that like they can't get, like they can't really wrap their heads around the fact that their kid did not ask to be here. And like, this is the responsibility that they have to support, because that they have to honor, because they decided to have this kid, you know? And so you can't use the argument of I clothed you, I fed you and all of that. No, that's what you're supposed to do. And so if your kid challenges that and is like, well, you're supposed to do that, you still messed up here. You can't be like, you're so ungrateful. Like, no, like you decided to have this kid. Like, you're ungrateful for not, or you're not a good parent for not acknowledging where you messed up with your child. Heaven said, yeah, I fed you, clothed you, took care of you. Yeah, you had a child. What were you going to do? But you never took time to actually learn about me. Were you really a good person? Yeah, like that's the truth, you know? And unfortunately, that's what a lot of kids deal with. And like I said, I understand why. It doesn't make it easy for, like, life does not make it easy. It doesn't make it easy for adults to survive, right? But it also doesn't make it easy for adults to, like, parent and raise children. Life does not make it easy at all, okay? And so I understand how difficult it is for parents to do the best that they could. But what I don't really tolerate anymore, and what I don't have time for, is parents who are like, well, you're just ungrateful. Well, you're just spoiled. Where you just don't care. Like, we did all of this for you. We helped you through college, and we helped you through this, and we helped you through that. And it's like, yeah, and there was still room for improvement. There's still room for improvement. At least I'm at this point where it's like, I'm grateful for all the things that my parents have done for me. And now looking back, especially seeing how people are, like, evolving socially, like, I'm more than grateful for all the things that they did provide me, and I'll always be grateful for that. But I can acknowledge where they messed up and really, like, impacted my mental health. I can acknowledge that. And I think a lot of parents who had kids in, like, an unprepared situation, I think that they fail to understand, like, where they messed up, because they're still harping on the fact that they did the best they could, when sometimes doing the best you can is not good enough. Like, that's life, right? That's the lesson of life. Heaven says, sometimes I wonder if they don't know. Yeah, sometimes I think that, like, a lot of, like, older parents, like, or people who aren't emotionally mature enough. I'm not going to get ageist with it, okay? I know I sound very ageist, shitting on boomers all the time, but I'm not going to try to be ageist. I think that a lot of people who have kids when they are not emotionally mature enough to understand what it means to have a child, I do believe that they haven't reached the threshold of understanding that the bare minimum of raising a kid is clothing you, taking care of you. Like, the fact that a lot, and you have to do more as a parent, right? And the fact that a lot of parents can't even do that is disturbing. The fact that there are parents who will literally abandon their child is disturbing. That is not normal behavior, you know?
It was like, yeah, it was like that. It was like that. And that just made me want to, like, all right, now I'm going to screw stuff up more, because you're going to react like that. You know, now I'm just going to act out against you. You know, and sometimes it was like I wanted to be so nice and tiptoe around and do everything perfect for them. But it was never perfect enough. It was never good enough for them. They were never satisfied. And it's like, if I did one thing wrong, shame from them, from the whole family. Big shame on me. But if I did one thing...
He gives me middle child tease. He gives me, like, he was the middle child. I don't know. Something, like, for whatever reason, the middle child always gets some more shit. I don't know why, but, like, that's what... I feel like he was a middle child.
Right? Crickets. No one even knew. No one noticed. It was like, oh, that just happened on its own. Oh, that just happened on its own. You know, when I do something good. It was like, oh, that just happened by magic, you know? And it was like, I just couldn't get any credit. I could get discredit and criticism, but I could not even get a freaking ounce of credit from those people. And then they wanted to lean on me and talk about their problems to me and have me be their little therapist. And, you know, from a very young age, from like maybe like literally 6 years old or so, like from the first grade, they're trying to tell me about all their problems and this and that. And it's just like, man, y'all didn't love me. Y'all just wanted to suck me dry and make me into an empty husk and throw me aside. That's what they wanted. Get all the attention and criticize me, make me into a punching bag, gaslight me, deceive me, manipulate me, be real weird, freak out, you know, make the environment feel very unstable, be very passive aggressive. Anytime I'd get any kind of a bad grade, it was like the worst thing in the world, and It was a big, huge shame, and it was, you're gonna be a garbage man, you're gonna amount to nothing, and it was like, man, there was so much stuff. But they try to act all, we're your parents, we love you. If they love me, they would not treat me that way. And if your parents loved you, they wouldn't be treating you like that. They really wouldn't. They wouldn't be acting the way they're acting. I mean, for real. For real, for real. If they loved you, they would be acting like they loved you. They would be forgiving. They'd be kind. They would also recognize that, hey, they're the adult. They're the grown-up. You're the child. There is expectations, responsibility on them. And the child is a child. They're learning. They're growing. They need to be.
So I'm going to stop him right here because he said that he was like his parents' therapist. Like his parents went to him for therapy, that his parents, like his family, like expected him to be a therapist from like a young age. My partner has said the same thing, that like with his family, especially when his parents would fight, when they were together, they would go to him at a young age and, you know, ask him to take aside an argument. That never happened with my parents specifically, per se, but it happened a lot with my aunts. And it's one of the biggest reasons why I do not talk to them anymore. It's one of the hugest reasons why. Like the amount of, there was a time where I lived with my aunt when I was like 17 years old because the housing situation with my parents got so bad that we rented out a home. And we had to leave said home in a little under a month because of either financial issues or because the owner of the home wanted to sell it. And so they basically gave us a month to pack up all our stuff and leave. And so I lived with my aunt for about a year around like 2010 to 2011, which was very, very stressful. No, 2011 to 2012. Yes, which was very, very stressful for me because it was a shift from having my own space as a kid to having to share a live space. She had a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment, kind of what I have now, but like one of the bedrooms was used as a like a guest bedroom, like leisure room where you can watch TV and stuff, and the other one was her actual bedroom, and that's where I slept for about a year. And so I'll preface this by saying the good, okay? This is a little bit more Exes lore. A little bit of trauma dumping, so I might put a trigger warning on this. I don't know. I might put a big fat trigger warning on this whole entire, like, bit that I'm doing. But, my aunt, this is my great aunt, she taught me everything I needed to know about being an adult, about how to clean, how to cook, and all of that, where my mom did not teach me. Again, my mother helicoptered me and monitored over me, but she did not nurture me as a child. She did not teach me the basic, like, techniques of being an adult, you know, like cooking, cleaning, all that. She didn't teach me that. My aunt taught me all of that, right? But my aunt was inappropriately hard on me. Always called me stupid or hinted at the fact that I didn't have common sense, which my theory of common sense is that if 1 or 2 people understand the sense that you think is common and everybody else doesn't, then it's not so common, is it? It's not common sense. I'm always going to say that. Sometimes you have to explain things to people like they're 5. Most people you have to explain to as they're 5. I don't know if she was stressed out from working with my parents and like maybe this is her way to like let off some steam, or if it was just really stressful taking on the role of raising me for a year because I didn't know where I was going to live and my parents had to like figure out their financial situation so that they had a home. But it got very toxic. It got very uncomfortable. My aunt would have conversations with me about my own mother, about things that my mother would do that she did not like, and tried to position my mom like she was the villain. I hope I'm not oversharing, y'all. But it got to the point where even if I wanted to stand up to myself, I didn't feel like I could because I felt like it would have been met with unapproval. And I was so desperate to have the approval of my family and all the adults in my life. I did not have other kids that like looked like me. I feel like if we had like another sibling, they'd probably compare me to that sibling, right? They would all absolutely compare me to that sibling. But like I felt as if I had like, I just wanted to be loved. I wanted to be included. I wanted to be accepted. I didn't want to be like a little exes that you had to take care of like a pet. I just wanted to be like appreciated, you know? And they did appreciate it and they did love me, but there were some things that they messed up on. And one of those things is what my aunt did. And so like, it was a very inappropriate relationship where she was trying to raise me, but then she also kind of used me as like her therapist, where she talked about all the things that were going on with her interaction with my own parents, which, you know, is not healthy to do to us with a 17-year-old girl. Okay. Or it isn't, because now I have a vendetta against my mother. Why? Because my aunt is saying all this shitty stuff about my mom. And so I don't know, like, you shouldn't do that as an adult. So I understand absolutely where he's coming from with this, and how it is like emotionally draining as a kid from like a young age to hear like all these like inappropriate adult situations that your parents are going through, but then like these same parents are trying to raise you. You can't do that. Okay, like I said, a lot of folks are not ready to be parents, and I think a lot of folks don't know how to parent. You know what I mean? Let's finish this video and then I'll come to a conclusion.
Taught. They need to be shown, you know. They're a kid. You know, if your freaking kid drops milk on the floor, kids are gonna do that shit. It's not a big deal. Just clean it up. Whoops, buddy. Try not to do it again. Hold it more carefully, you know. Hold your glass.
You should also not yell at your kids for like existing and being kids and making mistakes, you know.
Carefully, don't drop the milk on the floor. It's gonna make a mess. And that's it. And that's literally it. You don't have to, you made a mess. Gosh, sometimes my parents, they'd be like, you gotta drink your water over the sink. You know, you gotta eat, if you're gonna eat some cookies or anything, eat it over the sink, you know. So I don't put one crumb on the floor, and it's just this insane stuff.
Okay, you know what's coming, right? You'll start.
Okay, let me just. Where is the skip ad? Here it is.
Like, parents are protectors. There's a lot of stuff I could have been protected from as a kid, and my parents did not protect me from anything. They didn't stand up for me for anything. They were not my advocate. They weren't trying to like get the best for me. They were just like, well, just throw them in the mix, whatever. We don't care. We don't care about how he develops or turns out. And it's funny because when I was a teenager, like on my own, I decided to start working out and doing all this self-improvement stuff. And it's like, then my parents started to actually show me some love. You know, then they started to show me a little bit of love when I did that. But when I was like, whatever, kind of like a chubby kid, and my parents were like, what are you doing? I was like, they're very shallow, these narcissists. They're really shallow. And I don't know, you know, there might have been some other reasons for that or whatever, but I don't know, you know. But I'm just going to say that they're very shallow. They're very shallow people, and they see you as an extension of themselves. And if you're doing well at something, provided they're not trying to sabotage you, because a lot of times they'll do that. But provided they're not trying to sabotage you, if you're like doing well, they'll attach themselves to it and go, look, that's my kid. I basically did that. When it's like, no, actually, like I had to do that on my own will. I had to work against you as well. You've actually been not like something that's helping me move forward. You've been this big impetus, this big obstacle, this big problem I've consistently had to deal with. And I've had to deal with that problem since I've literally been a baby. And it's like, man, so yeah, don't buy into their BS about how they love you so much and it's so nice and it's so great. Don't buy into it. Don't buy into their fake stuff. Yeah, I've been talking for a long time here. I've been going on a while, so I'm going to end this video here. Thank you all so much for watching. Much love. God bless. I really appreciate you all. We're all a community doing this together, keeping it real together, finding truth together. And yeah, much love. God bless. I will see you all next time.
Okay. Okay, so that's the end of the video. Okay, so final thoughts. Yay, we finished the video. Yay. Okay, so final thoughts. So I agree with a lot of the things that he's saying, that parents, first of all, I don't think anybody unconditionally loves somebody. I've mentioned that. Like, I think unconditional love doesn't really exist. I think everything comes with conditions. Everything. Like, if you are dating somebody and they cheat on you, that was the condition. They break up with you. That's not unconditional love. Okay. I think love is very transactional, and like I think everybody has a right to, whether they want to admit it or not, they have a right to opt out of loving someone if they don't honor the transaction. I will say though that it can be very harmful when you are bringing in children to this world and you push your love away from them, or you move in not having and having conditional love for them, because I do feel like it does affect them when they're older. I personally feel like a lot of parents were not ready to have kids. Like, they should not have had kids. And I think that society has told people that the best thing that they, like, the pinnacle of their life, this is something that wealthy, like, billionaires do to, like, poor folks. The pinnacle of your life is for you to procreate and have children, to populate the earth. Why? Why is that the pinnacle of your life? Because they need more workers. That's the only reason why. They're not going to talk about how hard it is to raise a kid, how there's going to be financial hardship and difficulties, how the minimum isn't you feeding your children and ensuring that they go to, or the minimum is you feeding your children and ensuring that they are taken care of. Like the Maslow hierarchy of needs. Let me pull that up real quickly. Maslow hierarchy of needs and raising kids. Okay. So here's my thing. Okay. I feel like with the Maslow hierarchy of needs, we have conditioned parents to thinking, or parents have thoroughly believed, maybe based off of the lack of resources that they had, that physiological needs and safety needs, like the bottom of the pyramid, is good parenting. And that's it. And so the physiological needs is air, water, food, shelter. So ensuring that somebody is physiologically, their needs are met, right? The safety needs, personal security, no violence, crime, war, health, well-being, stable environment, financial security, safety nets. Okay, so like, here's the thing. Okay, physiological needs, parents who aren't ready to have kids, who do not have the resources. Okay. Physiological needs, okay, are what parents who are not ready to have kids, who probably had kids in poverty, will use in order to like shame their children. And I gave you everything that you needed. I supported you. I took care of you, all of that, right? But like, this is like the bottom of the pyramid in parenting. Okay. Like, that's what you're supposed to do as a parent, right? And we have conditioned so many parents, because they are not ready to have kids, are not ready to have children, that this is the best you can do as your child. Unfortunately, there are parents below this level, which is at the very bottom of the Maslow hierarchy of needs, way below, that haven't even met the physiological needs. And so you have a bunch of parents who don't even know how to provide for their kids on a basic like food and shelter level. Maybe like abandon their kid, right? Where they have to kind of rely on the other parent to kind of fend for themselves and take care of them, right? Who think that the parents who do the very bottom are good enough parents. And it's like, no, you're not a good enough parent because you stick to like the very bottom of the pyramid. Sometimes that's really all you can do given like your economic situation. safety needs is also kind of what you need to do as a parent as well. Like, this is a requirement, all right? This is also something you need to do. Otherwise, you do not need to be a parent, okay? Personal security, no violence, war, crime, all of that. Health and well-being. Is your kid healthy? Is your kid healthy? Like, are you feeding your kid to ensure that they're healthy, or are you feeding them unhealthy food that can ultimately affect their health? Okay, colon cancer is on the rise. Eat your fiber. Are you feeding, like, does your kid have enough fiber in their diet? Or are you feeding them unhealthy food all the time? Stable environment, big one. How many, like, parental environments or family structures where the environment just wasn't stable? Maybe you had food, water, and shelter, but maybe you had a father that just wasn't in the family, or a parent that just was, you know, like, had abandoned the family. Or maybe you just had, like, for me, like I said, my parents argued a lot all the time. That environment was not stable. It got so bad that, like, my mental health was shot. Like, I was just anxious all the time. Financial security. Okay, a lot of folks don't have financial security. Safety nets. So like, and this is, like, again, at, like, the very bottom of the pyramid. These are two things that you kind of need in order to be a decent, like, in order to meet the bare minimum of being a parent. Okay, like, in my opinion. And then love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. Okay, maybe not self-actualization. Okay, maybe that's something that you have to do personally. But, like, esteem and love and belonging, like you as a parent, like, that is where the real parenting starts, in my opinion. You don't just stop here. And I think because of how difficult things are economically, parents are convinced, because honestly, a lot of them don't have a choice, that, like, physiological needs is, like, good enough, and then safety needs is a bonus. When in actuality, it's physiological needs and safety needs are, like, a requirement, and then love and belonging and esteem, love and belonging, family, friendship, community, romantic relationships. Okay, maybe not romantic relationships, but, like, membership, affection, you know, esteem, self-respect, confidence, respect for others, reputation, recognition, and achievement, right? Like, this stuff, right? Like, this is stuff that parents should, like, be instilling in their child, right? I know that the Maslow hierarchy of needs is representative of, like, individuals and how they can improve their life, but I feel like there are some concepts that you can apply to parenting too. Safety needs and physiological needs is the minimum requirement. Love and belonging and esteem and hoping that your kid reaches some version of self-actualization is where the parenting actually, like, sticks. And that's when you can say you were a good parent. And unfortunately, even then, because your kids aren't just raised by parents, right? Kids aren't just raised by parents. They're raised by their environment. They're raised by the other kids at school. They're raised by the interactions that they have growing up. Like, it's not just, it can be very hard and difficult to reach this point. Like, social media, they're being raised by social media, they're being raised by the internet. It's very hard to reach this point. Like, this is the challenge. But, like, the prerequisite as a parent is your physiological needs need to be met for your child, and your safety needs need to be met. And, like, unfortunately, like, this is going to be a hard pill to swallow, but because you decided to have the kid, I believe that if you cannot provide these things, then, like, you're not, like you have some work to do as a parent. Now, I do understand that there are some people who they have children unplanned, or they are in a situation where they are coerced to have a kid. There's a rape happening, unplanned pregnancies are a thing. I understand, and I hold grace in my heart for those people that get in those situations, because that's not fair. However, and then even, like, you don't even know how your body's working or your hormones working, so you might think that you're pregnant, but you might not think that you're pregnant, but you actually are, and you end up being like too far along to, like, do anything about pregnancy. So I do understand that things happen, but I do think that a lot of parenting is just, like, you have to hold yourself accountable. And I think it's also not fair to a lot of the boomers and Gen Xers, because I think they went into parenting like, this is what I have to do. This is the next step for me. And it doesn't have to be. Like, they could be other things, you know? And I think, especially with the population apparently declining, I think a lot of people are coming to terms with the fact that like there's so much more from life outside of having kids, that I don't want to have kids at this age. I used to be like, you know, by the time I'm 32 or 34, I'm going to have a child. Now looking at like, just looking at mom talk, like mom TikToks, and like how like postpartum depression and all of that, and like all the things that they deal with, I'm just like, no, I'm good. Like, I want to preserve my body. I still don't have my dream body yet. Like the body that like where I look like, you know, that father figure song that's trending on TikTok? Like every time I walk past somebody, it just sings in their head. Like, that's the type of body I want. Like, I haven't even gotten there yet. I don't have a car. I don't have a car. I don't have I haven't traveled the world. You know, there's a very specific lifestyle I want for myself, like a comfortable lifestyle I want for myself. A kid can't be involved in that. Hello? Like, no. And so, like, TLDR, based off of what this guy has talked about with his family, I feel like he was a middle child. I do. I feel like he was a kid that dealt with being the middle child and like neglected. I don't think it's fair that his parents yelled at him every time he made a mistake as a child, because again, like, that the kid didn't ask to be here. But I think this is like a common issue that a lot of, you know, unfortunately, millennials have dealt with their parents. And I think the disconnect is that a lot of boomer parents expect a handout for how they've parented. And they get kind of like guarded up. And I'm not even going to say boomer parents. A lot of parents who had kids when they were not emotionally mature enough to have them get guarded or get defensive when their kids come out and say, hey, there are some things you messed up on, and can you hold yourself accountable for them, and can we work through this? Like, they get defensive because they think that they're doing everything they could. And, you know, based on how this world works today, it is very hard to just accomplish the two things, right? Like physiological needs and safety needs, right, for your child. However, if you know that to be true as a parent or as an adult, then I would just encourage you to strongly reassess whether or not you should be having kids. Like, if you can't reach the Maslow hierarchy of needs for yourself, your physiological needs and your safety needs, why are you even thinking about having a kid? Which, again, as like me and Heaven have said, if you can't manage yourself, how the hell are you going to manage other children? Like you gotta get these two things down first, and then everything else will come. All right. So that's my opinion on that. It's unfortunate that like a lot of parents are having kids. A lot of parents had kids when they weren't ready to have kids. That's very, very unfortunate. It's unfortunate that a lot of people are conditioned into thinking that having a kid is the best thing that they can do with their life, when there are other things that you can do to self-improve and self-actualize and maybe work through your emotional evolution as a person and become emotionally mature before you actually have a kid. You know, it's a shame that that also happens. It's a shame that a lot of women have been sold and spoon-fed this lie about romance, love, marriage, and children. That really positions a woman in a way where their autonomy is completely gone and who they once were as a person is completely like it has disappeared, you know? Like, I just love my autonomy so much, and I'm just such a selfish, like, I am a super selfish person. Okay, like, I'm very selfish. Like, what the hell do I look like having a kid? Okay. But anyway, that's that on that. I'm going to take a quick break. I got to go to the bathroom, and then I'm going to come back and talk about other things that have been interesting me. So yeah, BRB, guys. Da, da, da. Okay. Hi guys, welcome back. So, Heaven said, is it truly selfish when you are preventing the future child from experiencing hardship? Can you expand on that, Heaven? I don't understand. But hi guys, welcome back. Okay, so what is on the docket of things to talk about? First and foremost, it's a Sunday. Tomorrow is Monday. It is like 1:25 a.m. over here. I should be in bed, but to be fair, I did take a nap before coming online. So it's a little bit easier for me to like stay up and be alert. I've been here for about 3 hours. I'm almost wondering if I should like split up the stream and cover other things in the next stream, because this video was really hard, like long. It was long to get through. I liked the video, but there was a lot of like, you know, it took a minute to like commentate and have the review, like have a solid like reaction to everything that he was saying. So I got a lot of other stuff to talk about. I may just, you know, split the stream in half, change the title up, because we're not talking about all the other topics I want to discuss. But one thing I do want to talk about is the Cowboy Carter tour and Beyonce real quickly. Let me get out of, and then I think I will close out. No, I don't want to enter Mirrorland. My Infinity Nikki's open. I'm probably not gonna play Infinity Nikki tonight, with all due respect. Exit game. Okay. Where is TikTok? Damn, I really wanted to talk about Dreamcon too. I'll talk about that later, because Dreamcon happened like 30 days ago, I think. So we'll talk about Dreamcon later. But I wanted to talk about Beyonce and the Cowboy Carter tour, because apparently she almost fell. Like her 16's carriage, her Cadillac almost collapsed or like fell into the crowd. So let's take a look. Okay, so you guys see this right here? Her carriage. So okay, in the Cowboy Carter tour, Beyonce flies up on like several different things, right? So she's like flying on she's flying on like a horseshoe. Okay, let me pull up the horseshoe. Let me pull up the horseshoe real quick. Okay, Heaven says, as you don't want to have kids due to not being able to handle it, isn't that selfless? You've stopped a future person. Yes, Heaven, that's the most selfless thing you can do. So Heaven says, as you don't want to have kids due to not being able to handle it, isn't that selfless? You've stopped a future person from experiencing hardship. Yes, which I think is why the pro-lifers, lose me a lot, because they're like, oh, the best gift you can give a child is birthing them, and then like you birth them into hardship. And like that's where like a lot of people just don't understand, like if you're not prepared to have a child, you don't have to have the child if it's abortionable weeks old. Like you can terminate the pregnancy, because they're not going to have a good life, and you're going to end up resenting that baby, like and then they're going to end up suffering for it, you know what I mean? So yeah, Heaven, that absolutely does make a lot of sense in what you were saying. You should not have children if you're not ready to have them. And that's the most selfless thing you can do as a person. It is incredibly selfish for you to have a kid when you are unprepared and not understand what it's going to take, the sacrifices it's going to take to raise the kid, and then situate the child into thinking that they're the problem because you were not emotionally mature enough to have the child yourself. So yeah, that's my take on that. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who fall into the idea that it is so selfless for you to have a kid, and that's the best thing you can do. No, it's not. It's selfless for you not to have a kid, and the only people you're really benefiting from having a child is billionaires who want to exploit you. So, because they need people to work. Okay, so anyway, Beyonce. So there's two props that she floats on. Oh, come on, New York Times. It's the horseshoe, maybe. Okay, it's a horseshoe. Okay, like it goes flying and it moves around pretty. See how it's moving so fast? You know what I mean? That thing is whipping around. Like, slow it down. Slow it down. Okay. I've seen other artists do this as well. I've seen Olivia Rodrigo. She has like a moon, I think. God, I don't want Olivia Rodrigo on my timeline. It's not that I don't like her. I actually really like her. Moon. See, like she was on a moon and she was just floating. I don't know if the moon moved, but yeah, it kind of moves a little slow, but Olivia Rodrigo was doing it. And then SZA had a boat. I love SZA so much because her theme is like SOS, and so she has this little boat that she's floating on. Oh my god, I regret not seeing her in concert. Also, sidebar, SZA also had an aunt in the Grand National Tour. Yeah, she had an aunt that she was riding on. I think that's cool. So like a lot of celebrities use props, and I think it adds like a lot of story to their music. You know what I mean? This aunt looks so cool. But like, you know, Beyonce's just swinging around on, like, she has a horseshoe. So let's go back to the horseshoe real quick. Okay, let's not go to the aunt. Where is the horseshoe? Beyonce horseshoe. Oh, I gotta go back to the app. No, I don't. Okay, hold on. Technical difficulties. Let me find it. So let me go to Beyonce horseshoe. Okay, I got a video. So you see how that thing is like whipping around? That's Beyonce there. That's Miss Giselle right there. Okay, and then like she comes to the audience in like the 100 section, which is pretty cool, so that they can see her, which I think is really, really nice. But I ever since I saw the tour and I saw that she was on a horseshoe, and then I also saw that she was in a Cadillac. Like this Cadillac thing, I was kind of just like, girl, like, I know Beyonce likes to do a lot, and this is the woman that like in her prime was like coming down from the ceiling upside down and singing, which like you got to give her props for that. That's pretty awesome. But like, she doesn't need to do all this. She doesn't, and I appreciate that she does. That she still puts on a show for her fans and for the people who support her. But it's just like, dang, because now the Cadillac like is tipping over. Like it was tipping, like it was teetering. And like I knew this stuff was gonna happen. I knew that like this situation was gonna happen, and they would have to lower her. And I don't know if they continued the rest of the tour or if they just ended it right at 16 carriages. But this is scary. And I don't know, to kind of wrap things up with like what I've been talking about today, because I gotta get a move on. I gotta get ready for work tomorrow. Beyonce does so much as a performer. does so much as a performer. She's like 41 years old. And she's still able to like get with it. Like I look at her contemporaries, like Britney Spears was really huge in the 90s. Flop really because she did not have a Matthew Knowles or a Tina Knowles in her corner. Let's just talk about it. She was not protected by her parents. Her parents saw her as a cash cow, and they extorted her like one. They did not protect her and nurture her, right? But like you gotta understand like how big Britney was back then. And like Beyonce was just coming up and she was grinding and she kept getting the short end of the stick. And even in American Requiem, she talks about how, you know, they used to say she was too country and then she got too big and they said that she wasn't country enough. And like that did happen where like articles would say, oh yeah, Destiny's Child is too country, they speak weird, we don't know if they are like high fashion enough to work with these fashion brands. And then Beyonce works her ass off. She works her ass off to finally be like, look guys, is this enough for you? And then there are the same motherfuckers who said she was too country. She's over here at the CMA Awards and saying she's not country enough. She's too big for country. She's way too big for country. And then they'll have like Lady Gaga play. They'll have like all these other celebrities play. I got beef with country music, bro. I don't fuck with country music. I hate country. I hate country music. I do. I hate it to its fiber. I like the Black country artists and I'll always support them. I love Tanner Adele. I think she's adorable. And I like Shabuzi's song Tipsy, but like as a genre, as a like an industry and as a machine, I hate country. That needs a musty deck for me to explain why I hate it with every fiber. And it's not like I don't enjoy the music. Like I like me some Shania Twain, I like me some Dolly Parton, but like this whole album that Beyonce came out with, which I thought really wasn't a country album. I thought it was a Beyonce album, but people are saying like, no, it's a country album. I think it's a country dissertation, in my opinion, about like the origins of country. I just feel like this album really solidified my visceral hatred for country and why I'm so annoyed with it and why I don't appreciate it and why I don't appreciate how the genre has evolved and what the thing that they constantly do to people of color and to marginalized groups who have originated a genre. Anyway, that aside, Heaven, I agree. We do not deserve Beyonce. Heaven says that we don't deserve her. We don't deserve Beyonce at all. We do not deserve her. She is very talented. Let me tell you something, okay? With this whole car tilt at the Cowboy Carter tour, let me change the scene, okay? The fact that she's 41 and she's still like whisking away on a horseshoes, flying in the air with Cadillacs, giving me a heart attack because like you don't need to, like she doesn't need to do all that, but she feels like she has to compensate for the fact that like, you know, she doesn't move the way she used to anymore because she's given so much of herself early on in her career. She's really gone above and beyond to actually prove herself as an artist and why she gets to be called Beyonce, okay? But stuff like this just scares me because it shows me that like she doesn't have to do she doesn't have to do this stuff, right? Like she could just do everything on the ground level, but she knows that she, like, you know, in the Renaissance movie, she said that her knee was busted and she can't really move like she used to anymore. And it's a little bit difficult for her because she's getting over a knee injury. And so she kind of has to sit pretty now. She can't like dance the way she used to. I also noticed early on in like her tour, when it first came out in May, she was, you know, dancing, not as vigorously, and then towards the end she was picking up steam, which I'm excited because when she comes to Atlanta she's probably going to be dancing really, really hard. But it's just like, I don't know, she just works so hard, bruh. She works so hard to get like so little, and then when she finally does get like, okay, and when I say so little I mean like an accolades, right? Like there are people who are sitting up next to her, right, that she constantly gets compared to. I'm not going to do the comparisons tonight. That give absolutely everything that give absolutely everything except the most, bare minimum all the way through, and get to sit next to or have a seat at the table of where Beyonce is. Beyonce gives us nothing but the most in every single performance that she does. And then she still gets scrutinized, she still gets judged, and then and now her Cadillac is teetering. And I don't know, I just need her to slow down a little bit. Not like she's getting old, she needs to slow down. No. She can still perform, but it's like, I just wish she didn't feel like she has to do all of this in order to provide a show. You know what I mean? We already know what she's capable of. She is Beyonce. She is bigger than life. She is larger than life. She doesn't have to do all of these things and put herself at jeopardy for us to appreciate her. You know what I mean? Because we already do, even if she's not moving the way she used to when she was in her debut era, it's just so impressive just to see her, evolve and just come there to just celebrate her and our talents. You know what I mean? I will always say this does not exonerate the fact that I do not think that Beyonce is a capitalist. I absolutely do. I am a Beyonce fan, and I'm allowed to be. There are some of y'all's faves are Barbs. And Nicki Minaj is not a good person. Time and time again, that woman is crashing out for whatever reason. I think she saw Cardi B at the tour sitting and what's her name? Oh God. Kelly Rowland sitting on her lap. And immediate crash out from Nicki. It's not even slick anymore, but people will stand by her, vouch for her, stan her, say she's the best performer of all time. And she can emote and stuff, but she's not a good person, and people will stand her. Kanye West over here talking to Tucker Carlson about Hitler being the best guy ever. Doja Cat hates her fans. Okay. And Beyonce minds her business and does some very capitalistic things. Let's not excuse that, but I don't know. I think I'm allowed to like her, and I'm just worried. I don't think she needs to. I don't think she needs to float around in a Cadillac to get her point across. I think they should change it up. I really don't even think she needs to fly around in a horseshoe, because that thing just be whipping around. It just be moving so fast, and I don't know. I just don't want anything to happen to her. You know what I mean? With her, her trying to prove that she is the HBIC of performances and talent. She doesn't need to do that. You know what I mean? She's already enough. But I'm excited. I'm excited to go to the tour. I'm going as a goth cowboy. Hopefully people will understand what I'm putting down, or pick up what I'm putting down. But I'm excited. I got to get ready for that. I am nervous because I am going with friends. I'm going with a friend, but and I think I'm going with a friend that's going to be on it. You know what I mean? Because I've had friends where I go to events with them and then they are just all over the fucking place, but my friend's no, we gotta show up early so that we can see if we can get front tickets, or floor seats. Someone can come to us and we can talk to them about getting floor seats, and so they already seem on it, so I trust them, right? But this is gonna be my first concert. I'm very excited to go. I'm also nervous because a lot of people are saying you don't want to be at public events. We're in this war with Iran. You don't know what could happen. So I'm not going to speak that into existence. I don't think that's going to happen. It's not going to happen. It won't happen. All right. I'll be safe. But I'm very, very, very excited to go to the tour. But as this comment says, to wrap everything up, very dangerous. She doesn't have to do this to be great. She's already great. And it's true. She really does not have to do this. She doesn't need to float around on horseshoes in Cadillacs. And she does this because she loves us. And she has to let us know that she's Beyonce. And she's always going to give budget. But it's just dang, bruh. Dang. thing. So like hopefully they fix, like, look at her, like she's on like she's on a, see this? She's on a mechanical bull, you know what I mean? Like this, I'm very excited for this tour. So yeah, I don't know, I just really appreciate her as an artist. It's so awesome to know that she's been like a part of my life since I was like 8, and now I'm like 30 and I'm going to see her. Like I think that's a big deal for me. And I can't, you know what, I really can't wait, because I'm an adult now and I can pay attention to pop culture a little bit more. Like who is going to be that person for the next generation of kids? Now I know, as Heaven said, we do not deserve her, and there's never going to be another Beyonce. Like there's just never, it's just not going to happen. Okay. It's just not going to happen. All right. Like she comes from a different cloth of performance. You know what I mean? So yeah. But I do wonder which artist is going to be like a Beyonce equivalent, in that like it's this person who has been resilient and consistent throughout all areas of like this generation's life, or like Gen Alpha's life. Like, you know, they grew up listening to their music, and then they're like still consistent in making quality music at like, I don't know, 2050 or something. Like who is that going to be? What is that going to look like? People say it's going to be Blue. And you know, it might. We'll have to wait and see. The resources are there, but like, is it going to be like Doja Cat? Is it going to be Doechii? I think Doechii. Doechii. Let me just show you guys something real quick, and then I'll like head off. Okay, let me turn on, no, I can't turn on the music, but like she's like if you guys can pay attention, she's like rapping in a split. Like she's rapping in a split, and some of y'all's faves can't even rap while throwing it in a circle. You know what I mean? Like, let me see if I can like pause this. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like a Doechii stan. Like, you see how she's in a split and they're holding her up, and she's rapping to Nissan Ultima, which is like a really hard song to rap to. Okay, I just need y'all to know that I feel in my soul of soul that it will always be Doechii. Like, Doechii is going to be the princess of rap. She might even be like the new queen. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's too soon. Maybe it's too soon. But she's the princess of rap. Okay, she is a peer of Beyonce. Like, she's just like, when I saw that interview with Joe Budden, I've never seen someone so hungry before to be like into the craft of music. Like, I just really like Doechii. But yeah, anyway, I think that's it. We're at 3 hours and 30 minutes. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to cover all of my topics today, but I gotta get to bed. I gotta hit the hay. I gotta get ready for tomorrow. There's stuff I gotta do. I gotta go to work. I know I only have a couple weeks left, but I really don't want to be there. I'm gonna see if I can take Thursday off. But yeah, maybe in like a couple years I can rant about how difficult this job has been for me mentally. But I don't know. Like I said, the next job that I get, I am going to be so very careful with how I communicate with people, and how I choose to interact with folks, because a lot of people really don't, like, I don't know, corporate America just sucks, bro. Like, corporate America just sucks, and it's not reliable. And I think that's another thing, going back to like the parents of millennials, and all of that, because the boomers like instilled in us that we need to go to college in order to be successful. And then we did that. We went to college, we got the degree. Some of us got more degrees. Then we come out of college, 2008 recession hits, and none of us can get a job. And we're working at Starbucks, where we were told and drilled into our parents' heads that if you go to college and get good grades, you won't have to work at Starbucks. And we're still working at Starbucks with the same person who didn't go to college. And I just think about that a lot. I think about how difficult it is just existing as an adult, and how corporate America is turning into a dumpster fire. How they are really banking on like human society. I talked about this yesterday. Human society just relying on AI to do a majority of the jobs. And I don't know what that means for actual humans, like what like where we're gonna work, or where we're gonna work, or what we're gonna do, and if there's actually going to be more jobs created or less jobs done, you know? Everybody wants to throw around the term efficiency. But efficiency at what cost? You know what I mean? And I don't know. I say all that to say, as I close off, that if you in your heart of hearts feel like you are not built for corporate America, okay, and you want to start your business, just go ahead and start it. At this point, you have to start a business out of survival. It's not even a matter of, I want to start this business because it's my passion. It used to be back in the day, I want to start a business because, you know, this is what I really want to do and this is my dream. And like, that was a privilege for a lot of people. No, just start that fucking business, bro. Just start the business and just do your best, I guess. Huh, okay. It's hard though. It's hard to really do your best in this world. Not looking to applying to more jobs, but I know I gotta do it. I'm starting to get the dreams of like I've already had the job. Like sometimes I'll get dreams where like the thing that I so desperately want, that I so desperately need, happens, and then I wake up and I realize it hasn't occurred. So I'm already having dreams about me having a role, but I know the next role that I want, I gotta be making more money, because if I'm gonna be eating shit at my job, I got to make sure that it is worth it. Like my last boss would literally tell me, we don't pay you $75K a year for you not to do your job, over things that were just simple misunderstandings. And they would also say that like, oh, the stuff that happened between you and your manager is your karma because you said that I yelled at you. And I never, I like, or you said I was a bad manager, which I never said she was a bad manager. I just said that, you know, she kind of got a little stern and was, you know, talking at me a certain way because I'd only been at the job for about, 30 days. And I didn't put a link in a Jira ticket. Like, so I don't know, that nice young girl that is going to be, she's not young, she's like my age, but she's going to be taking on the whole department that I guess she's going to be managing, or that the manager that they have is going to be taking on. You know, my boss was like, oh, it's so much work, it's going to be a lot for her. And yeah, it is going to be a lot for her. It's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be very tough for her to like handle and survive. But you know, who knows, maybe that girl might be her karma. Like, I don't know, I just see that, like, I just see so much life in her and so much happiness in that the new hire that is transitioning and taking my spot, right? I see so much life, and she's so sweet, and it's like not her fault, you know what I mean? Like, I'm never gonna have ill will over somebody who's taking on my role, because it's not her fault, it's not her decision, it's like upper management, right? And she's really good at her job, and already my boss is like, I don't like her because she showed up late to my meeting once, and I'm just like, you should just leave this job. You've already been talking about leaving the job. Just leave, because it's gonna bleed into this girl. Like, already you had several employees say that they, like, you've had me, who I haven't really said that I felt like like I felt like I've been stupid, but I genuinely did feel like I was stupid on the job. You had another employee who called themselves stupid and that they didn't know what they were doing on the job, and then you had an investigation opened about you because a previous employee that had gotten fired had said that you were like saying disrespectful things and basically calling them stupid at the job as well. Like, I just hope that lovely young lady does not have to deal with that. Young lady, she's like my age. I just hope she doesn't have to deal with that when she works with my boss. You know what I mean? Because like when negativity when you have like negative leadership, it bleeds into the employees. And so I hope she doesn't have to deal with that. I really don't. Because if like all three employees are saying, I feel a little dumb on the job. Like, do you not think that maybe, I don't know. Like, but that's a story time for another day. I have to close off. I'm just rambling. All right, guys. Thank you guys so. Okay. I don't know what's going on out there. But thank you guys so much for coming to my stream. I really appreciate every single one of you guys. All right. Shout out to Heaven for sticking around. And shout out for staying for like a really long time. I really appreciate that. I'm trying to figure out a schedule if I should be streaming on Fridays and Saturdays, Saturdays and Sundays, Fridays and Sundays. I'm working that out. I do like streaming late, but maybe I should stream a little bit earlier if I'm going to be streaming on Sunday so that I can be ready for tomorrow. But then again, I'm not really going to be having a job soon, so I could probably stream on Sunday and it won't be too bad. But yeah, thank you guys so very much for coming to my stream. I really appreciate it. Really, I do. I love you all so much. And I will be looking forward to seeing you guys next stream. So next week. All right. So take care, y'all. Love you guys so much. See ya.